Big 12 Today with Ari and James. Monday through Friday, 8 a to 11 a Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
Big 12 Today here on Big 12 Radio. It is the start of a new work week, a Monday edition. We are officially
Johnson looking for the end zone. Cuts it.
In the month of August, which is the kickoff to the college football season. It is a Modelo Monday, and today we launch a brand new series that will take us almost all the way up to week 0, because we'll be breaking down each and every school in this conference. It is our 30 days out countdown to kickoff series, and today we highlight Cincinnati. So, what do we know? What don't we know? What has to happen for Cincinnati to contend this season in the Big 12? Camp battles to watch, injury news, depth chart locks, and could Cincinnati, because we start with teams that are preseason towards the bottom of the league when it comes to expectations, could they be a sleeper team? I'm James Westling. You're not Ari Timken.
I'm not. Ari disappeared.
You are
T-Chains.
This is T-Chains.
What's up, T-Chains?
Taman Turner's with me this week. We've got Will Connerly producing and engineering all week long. And first of all, great job by both of you guys to get us up and rolling this morning.
You know, it's sometimes a process in the morning, but we'll make it work.
See, what's fascinating, Taman, is we have brought in support for mostly me, but a little bit you, when it comes to having Will in the house.
Will is the man.
We have an extra mind. We have an extra set of hands to keep us up on the air. And for you, you don't have to produce, essentially, most of the week, because Will will be filling in on the producer side. But what it means is now, like, you're in the line of sight.
Oh,
so
boy.
if Will messes something up, you have no way to communicate with him because now you're in it.
I feel a little bit of pressure. You know, is this what Michael Jordan felt like in Game 6 against the Jazz in the NBA Finals in 1998? I feel the pressure. But can we succeed? I think we'll do it.
I suggest getting a giant stop sign.
Okay.
And any time Will looks flustered like he does right now, what are you doing, Will? What are you doing right now?
Just adjusting.
Just adjusting your microphone? You're adjusting your microphone.
Yes.
What, you were throwing up some hand signals.
I was, because we got on. It doesn't matter. Well,
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Behind the scenes.
We got this.
Stuff.
We're all good.
Here's the deal. If we can get through the next 12 minutes,
Okay.
we have a 4-minute commercial break
That's important.
where you guys can huddle together, and we can go from there.
How about this? How about we let you fix it?
I think that's a terrible.
Are you sure? You're a coder. You're a mastermind. You know a lot of things. You play. Don't sell yourself short, James.
Thank you.
Anytime.
I'm going to lead into mastermind. My ears perked up a little bit when I heard that. Taman, before we get to, man, it was kind of a wild weekend.
It was.
When it comes to college athletics in the future. And I'm so over all this bills and laws and eligibility rulings. I just want to play football.
Before you get into that, it is now August, which means college football is happening this month.
In 26 days.
26 days.
26 days. Quick math.
26 days.
26 days we will have college football week 0.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
What'd you do this weekend?
This weekend, so my wife and son were out of town. So I literally stayed at my house and rested and did pretty much absolutely nothing. And it was amazing. I rested for a long time. I got a lot of sleep. I played some college football 27 on PS5.
How is it?
It's pretty great. And I have a story to tell, and I can't wait till we get to that story because I kind of teased it with Ari when you were out last time. But, like, it gave me some feels.
Did you get in a fight with King McClure playing online college football 27?
I did not get into a fight.
Because he takes it very serious.
I am on the road to glory. And I just entered my sophomore season.
That's a big year.
and I won the national championship as a freshman.
Oh man,
And you won't
stakes are high.
And you won't believe what school I'm.
What skill level?
I am at, what's the second highest one?
Varsity.
Varsity. Yes.
All right.
So so you had texted me over the weekend, and you were like, come up with a personal story.
Yeah.
So this is alluding to my personal story. I almost went to a Big 12 school. Fun
Okay.
fact. And the Big 12 school I almost went to was TCU.
Okay.
I got into TCU. And I wanted to go to the Bob Schieffer School of Journalism.
That's one of them private schools.
It is, yes. And I wanted to go to the Bob Schieffer School of Journalism because my major is journalism, and I've always enjoyed it. I wanted to be a news/sports guy. Well, obviously, I had different plans. I went to Hofstra in New York, but on College Football 27, I play for TCU. And no disrespect to Jaden Craig, but I took over the starter role, and I led us to a national championship. And we lost one game, but it wasn't under me. It was under Jaden Craig. And then I became and then we ended up going defeated under my rank.
Okay.
And we won the national championship against the SEC champion Oklahoma. So, fun fact, I was almost a Big 12 grad. I've always had some type, and it was a close decision because I was living in Connecticut at the time, and I had to make a decision on if I wanted to go to New York or did I want to kind of be reunited with some family here in Texas. My grandparents at the time, they were getting older, and I wanted to go to a really good journalism school. And I went to tour the Bob Schieffer School. I went to tour TCU in Fort Worth, and I really liked it. And I was like on the verge. I had to make a really tough decision. Ultimately, I did choose Hofstra, but I still have a Horned Frog in my heart.
Man, today I learned Taman Turner, T-Chains, almost went to TCU.
Did.
Had no idea.
I was almost a Horned Frog.
And I've called a lot of games there, and it is a beautiful campus. I had Jordan Cornette with me for an NBC broadcast for basketball, and it was on a weekend, and they were doing a bunch of like family weekend stuff, so there were just people everywhere. And him and I are driving through the middle of campus, and it was really cool because I had been there, I had seen it, I knew that it was neat, but I didn't realize like how it compares to some of these colleges that are on the East Coast. Jordan Cornette, my buddy, lives in Connecticut. Actually, I think he's in New York City now. Anyways, he's up there in that part of the country, and he was just blown away. Like the entire drive to the arena from our hotel, he was just raving about how nice TCU is.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful campus, gorgeous area, and listen, I don't like to live my life with regrets. I like to live my life with learning lessons. I love Hofstra, Roll Pride. That's my school. One thing I did tell Ari at Media Days is that one reason why, I don't know if you saw, you know how I was taking pictures with like every mascot?
Uh-huh.
It's because I didn't go to a big sports program school. Sure, Hofstra had basketball, but when I was there, they weren't really good. Mm-hmm. So they didn't get a lot of fan attendance. But I love the notion of the mascots having fun, and when I watch college football on Saturdays, I see the crowd getting into it. I think I saw it last year where Iowa State, where they just have everyone going at the same time. I thought it was super, super cool, and I never got to experience that. So I kind of live vicariously through the mascots when we're at Media Day.
Yeah,
I have a lot of fun.
You're living vicariously through the other Taman Turner in the other dimension, who went to TCU,
yes,
and was a star quarterback.
That guy
through
too.
the College Football 27
that was
video
amazing.
game, which just for our audience, we are just over here nerding out. Road to Glory is a feature on the new college football video game where essentially you are a high school recruit,
Yep.
and based off of how you play in high school, you get recruited. You have offers from a whole list of schools, and then you can commit to a place like TCU, and you walk around on campus. It's very interactive and very cool.
Sonny Dykes, my head coach, good guy. You know, I'm his boy. You know.
Let me know what Sonny says next time he's on the show, and you educate him on your road to glory, video game success.
Listen, if I had went to TCU, the history. And it was funny because when I told Ari that, he was like, what's the story behind that? And I told him, kind of what I just told you. He was like, you should have totally said that you had like this great uncle, whoever, who played for TCU was really great, and you were just taking the reins.
Oh,
Totally
yeah.
should have went with that
Yeah.
story.
Tayshawn Taylor.
Yeah, exactly.
Tayshawn Turner.
Yeah,
That's it.
come on.
All right, man, it was a big weekend. It was a big weekend. I was stunned because late Friday night, I mean, almost at the stroke of midnight, every number, every loophole, every 11th hour phone call ultimately led to the SEC and the Big Ten caving and approving the Protect College Sports Act. And Pete Nakos from On3 is going to join us a little bit later on here in the program. So the full breakdown of what's in the bill. Essentially, and this was wild, like President Trump is making threats on his, whatever he calls his version of Twitter, saying that he's going to light these guys on fire if they don't agree to this. But, long story short, it happened. It happened, and now there is a chance that this will go to a vote before the summer recess. So essentially, it is this week. It is this week. Everything's been finalized, stamped. It's a done deal. Now, it goes to a vote. If this thing gets approved, the salary cap, or the college athletics, because it's not just football, the cap is almost tripled. Okay, it's going from like 20 mil to $48.8 million per school. There's built in like a $5 million carve out for non-revenue sports, women's sports. There's a new retention pool, $22.5 million to just keep the athletes that are currently on your roster from transferring to play somewhere else. So now what was a $20 million budget for your entire roster is now a $21.3 million budget just for transfers.
Yeah, I mean, look, the SEC and the Big Ten, they sort of, they wanted new language. They got new language. There's some unanswered questions though before this even goes to the vote, and part of that is the college score. What's going to happen with the College Sports Commission? What's going to happen now with the new NIL deals? There's still some questions that remain, but from what we saw late Friday night, early Saturday morning, this looks like this is going to get a green light through Congress, which is major. I mean, everybody has been asking for reform. They're going to get it. Now, it's not the perfect bill. There's still going to be questions going forward once this thing is passed and goes to President Trump's desk. But how do you feel about tripling the cap?
So, it's a big jump, but I'm in favor of it because the reason why that number is the number that it is because very few programs through NIL, through fundraising, can even come close to a $50 million budget for athletics. There are a select few that do hit that number and have some of the most expensive rosters in all of college football. There's only one from the Big 12 that's even sniffing that. So for schools to even get to that number is going to be challenging. But what it does is it does prevent the schools that are already there from exceeding that.
Right.
So that part, to be honest, I like almost all of it. I'm in favor of this. I think it is a major step in the right direction. It extends the revenue sharing system beyond 2035. I really like the fact that what was holding up the SEC and the Big Ten, which is shocking to me, were these third-party deals being excluded from essentially, we keep calling it a salary cap. The terminology is different for what is actually in the bill, but it prevents companies like a Learfield or a Playfly or Bob's Ford from paying these players and that not counting towards your cap. The SEC and the Big Ten wanted to raise the cap and then close that loophole. So now it's more a professional sports model, or at least that's the idea, that there is a true number that is reasonable for everybody. Some schools won't be able to get to it, and the schools that do, it will level that playing field at the top. I don't think this does anything in terms of level the playing field when it comes to like the group of 6 schools and everybody else. group of 6 schools are still going to be operating at like a quarter of that budget. And then the other thing I like, and this is a real small detail, but to me, I like that agents now have to essentially be certified. Okay, if your uncle or cousin Joe wants to be your agent, he has to register with the state. He has to have endorsement contract fees that are capped now at 5%. So he can't slide one past the 5-star 17-year-old quarterback and take 40% of his earnings, and then that leads to a big lawsuit in the future. The transfer rule I'm in favor of. Athletes get one transfer without forfeiting their eligibility.
Yep.
That 5-year clock matches up with what the NCAA just passed about a month ago, that starts at 19 or whenever you get on campus, even if you reclassify, which we'll have more on that throughout the show. And then I like the structure of the future of realignment. Essentially what this bill does, and this is a big one to me, it caps power conference schools or membership to 19 schools. The Big Ten is at 18. They could add Notre Dame. That would be number 19. The SEC is at 16. The Big 12 is at 16. The ACC is at 17 for some sports, 18 for other sports. I don't actually know the hard number for the ACC, but it puts a cap on conference realignment. I love where the Big 12 is at now.
Yeah, I like that as well. I really like the transfer rule, one transfer. I really like, capping with realignment because, I feel like throughout my life there's been 8, there's been 12, there's been 16, there's been 17. It's like it gets confusing over a while, and sometimes I guess a little off-putting. It might tune some people out. And I think most importantly, and going back to the cap, talking about the money component to it, was that this was getting so unsustainable that it was really hard to keep up with it. And when I think about from a college football standpoint and even a college basketball standpoint, because like Dan Hurley talked about this, calling it I won't say his word, but he used some very colorful language of a type of show that it is. It was becoming that. And, as somebody, I mentioned at the start of the program that I went to a small school after they made the NCAA tournament last year. It just seems like there's no upsets anymore. This kind of, I think, levels the playing field to what we grew up with, because when it comes to March Madness, what do we love the most about March Madness? The upsets. How many upsets were there in this past year's tournament? Mm-hmm. There weren't as long.
Right.
And I just think with the money being capped, particularly at the top power schools, I think it will level the playing field a lot easier for some of these, small mid majors, where it makes it a little bit more fun for March Madness.
And especially with the transfer rule.
Yes.
Having essentially a free transfer and then a second transfer impact your eligibility clock. Well, that will essentially prevent guys from playing for 5 different schools in 5 years.
Yeah, that's
mathematically the math's not working anymore.
Right. It's funny because I remember we talked about this after the Final Four. Michigan, right, won a national championship, and it's funny because as good as they were, were the athletes really connected with the school? Or I should say this: were the fans really connected with the athletes? Because they were a school full of transfers. Like when you think of Michigan and you think about like the Fab Five from back in the day, everybody knows those guys as a fan. But does everybody know this team? Yeah, they're happy they won, but is there a connection to it? No, because everybody transferred multiple times and ended up at Michigan to win a championship. So I like that.
Naturally, this will kind of rein some of that in.
Right.
If it does pass, the Senate recess runs from August 7th to September 14th, only 7 weeks before the November midterms. So historically, post-recess, things really slow down when it comes to bills and votes and things getting passed. So this is it. We've got 4 days. Pete Nakos of On3, the College Football Insider, will be with us in about 20 minutes. But coming up next, we will break down the latest eligibility ruling. This came down in federal court. This also has an impact on college sports as we know it. And let's go recruiting rankings for 2027. He's Taman. I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio.
Jackson's in trouble now. David Bailey, he is a sack machine. Third and 8.
Big 12 Today here on Big 12 Radio. We are streaming on the new and improved Big 12 Conference app. Find it in the App Store for iOS or Android. It features us right there at the top. Big 12 Radio. Also breaking news, scores, highlights, and more. You're watching us on the Big 12 Fast channel, Big 12 Studios, and you're listening to us on TuneIn, and we are brought to you, the full-time fan, by Modelo. He's T-Chains. I'm James. We've got Will producing on the audio side. Special thanks to Anthony Smith, who is behind the camera, making it all happen on the TV side. So Big 12 recruiting rankings look much different this time of year than they did for this past season when it comes to high school classes. But first, speaking of high school classes, so the transfer portal might not be the biggest roster problem in college sports right now, because a federal judge in Denver over the weekend just blew the doors off of all this NCAA eligibility rules, and she did it essentially 4 days before fall camp. On Friday, Charlotte Sweeney granted a class-wide preliminary injunction that impacts every single student-athlete, and this is where it gets really wild, from the high school class of 2022. So 4 years ago, any athlete who has used all 4 seasons of their eligibility this past spring is now cleared to play a 5th season in 2026-27. So basically, the way I see it, all these individual cases, there were like 19 basketball players that were seeking an extra year of eligibility, I think in Tennessee, and this federal judge just said, you know what, screw it, let's just open the door for everybody. Everybody from 22-23, you can play.
You get an eligibility, and you get an eligibility, and you get it. Everybody gets a year of eligibility.
So the only thing that it doesn't seem to have a direct impact on is, and I just had it, where did it go? Athletes that, okay, so the NCAA approved this new 5-year eligibility model. 5 years to play 5. The clock starts at enrollment or the academic year after turning 19. The problem with that is that the class of 2022 kids who already exhausted their eligibility under the old rules, they were not grandfathered in. So the NCAA could have applied the new rule going forward instead of drawing that hard line in the sand that kind of screwed over athletes that were already on campus, is the way those athletes saw it. But it took until now. Today is August 3rd. College football teams, some teams are starting camp today. Others are starting camp here in the next few days. College basketball rosters, there are still teams with openings. A program like Kansas. We talked with Travis Goff, who we're going to have on the show tomorrow. We're going to replay that interview.
Yes.
We talked to him on Friday, the KU athletic director, and he noted that KU still has roster openings for Bill Self's basketball team, because everybody was kind of waiting for what the eligibility ruling was going to look like.
According to this article on CBS Sports, written by Cameron Salerno, my boy, Tamin Lipsey, is eligible to come back.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding. He could return for a 5th season.
Okay, yeah, so let's think about who this could impact in the Big 12. Because what I was looking for, and I just found it, it doesn't affect the age-based eligibility clock for athletes who were 20 years of age or older when their 5 years started. Those athletes aren't covered. But athletes that graduated high school on time, normal graduation, they're turning 18, class of 22, with this ruling they get an extra year. Are there other players mentioned?
Not from the Big 12, but notable names include NC State forward Darian Williams and Iowa State guard Tamin Lipsey, former Purdue guard Braden Smith. Yeah, that's the only ones I saw from the Big 12.
Those are
That's huge.
basketball players that will have a significant impact
Yeah.
on those teams.
Yeah. Hey,
Purdue's Braden Smith, Iowa State's Taman Lipsey,
yeah.
Darian Williams, who started his career at Texas Tech and then transferred to NC State.
Yeah. I mean, if they are eligible to play, this kind of changes the landscape of, these way too early preseason polls that we've been talking about. I think Houston and Kansas Houston and Arizona were ranked at the top of the Big 12, and then Kansas and Iowa State were kind of, later on. That changes if guys are allowed to play.
Big time.
Yeah.
Now, this is going to be appealed. Like, the NCAA is
Charlie
throwing
Baker's
an-
not happy.
No, they are big mad about this ruling because
Super mad.
they just get the eligibility ruling put in place, and this just opens up a whole new door for this season and the chaos that they're trying to rein in. So Charlie Baker, the NCAA president, said, yeah, we're going to appeal. Pete Nakos, who's going to be with us here in less than 10, called this confusing, which I strongly agree with. And then the Field of 68, Jeff Goodman, said that a Division I assistant coach from a power conference told him, now I'll spend the week trying to raise money so that we can screw over the kids that have worked their tails off for us all summer to go and maybe bring in some of these kids that could be like some of these guys could have already signed contracts to play overseas. Some of them could be playing in the NBA Summer League.
Yeah.
And now they could potentially be coming back to college for one more year.
Now, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about this ruling? How do you feel about the NCAA's response? And obviously, Charlie Baker's big thing is that Congress, and we're talking about the Protect College Sports Act. How does the new written Protect College Sports Act, I don't know, correct this in Charlie Baker's eyes?
Yeah, I don't think there's enough time.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
Right.
Like, the school year is here.
It's August.
It's August.
Football season.
Our kids are in school in 9 days. So the timing of it is the biggest issue that I have. And then also just the fact that college basketball teams on August 3rd, they start practice in about 60 days. As a fan, I would like to know what my favorite team's roster looks like. And with the international game, a lot of late additions have been added. Several schools in the Big 12 have picked up international prospects in the last couple of weeks. But to me, that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I completely am aligned with you. If I am a fan, I want to know what my roster looks like, especially 60 days out. I want to be able to, we talk about our predictions. But think about, you and Ari did a lot of different series during this offseason. And you broke down each roster. You broke down the schedules. And when you're making your predictions, you're basing it on the roster that you know, the information that you know about each team. If this is, if you have players coming back, here we are 60 days before, 70 days before Big 12 basketball media days, and you don't know what your roster looks like, that's frustrating. That's frustrating because you are trying your best to keep in touch with your program, to be a fan of your school, and you don't even know what it looks like. And I can only imagine how this makes coaches feel. And I think of Dusty May, right, who left Michigan to go to the Dallas Mavericks. And when he left, I guess the reasons that were cited were because kind of how college basketball is structured right now. He goes to the NBA and he knows what his roster looks like. Even though there's changes and tweaks and whatnot, you know predominantly what it's going to look like. When Michigan won the national championship back in April, the minute they won, Dusty May was at his presser talking about how he's talking to recruits and how he's trying to see what his roster looks like for next year. Can't even enjoy his championship. So I get back to, from a coach's aspect to a fan's aspect, is how are you supposed to keep in tune, in touch with your fandom for this program, for your school's program, if you have no idea who's on the team?
Mm-hmm.
And this only creates more problems for that.
Mm-hmm.
Am I happy for the players? Sure. They just want to go play basketball. I understand that notion. But it makes things a lot difficult for coaches, for the athletic programs, and for the fans.
Seeing Taman Lipsy one more year at Iowa State would be pretty cool.
I'm not
Not
opposed.
going to lie. Rivals has released the 2027 recruiting rankings, kind of an update. They reshuffled the board, reevaluated some prospects, and in the Big 12, Texas Tech has put together a top 10 class. They have 2 5-stars already, and these classes are, like, Texas Tech has 17 commitments. Kansas State has 27. Colorado has 20. For the 2027 high school recruiting rankings, a lot of high school athletes, most of them, have already committed. Now, National Signing Day, I believe, is – didn't they reset the deck? I'll have to check on that. I think it's in August now. In terms of when these guys can actually sign their contracts. But Texas Tech has a top 10 recruiting class nationally. But the rest of the Big 12, there are some new players when it comes to high school recruiting that we haven't seen recruiting at this level. Kansas State has the second best class in the Big 12. They've inked 3 4-stars and 24 3-stars. And then Colorado has the third best class in the Big 12. This is Rivals composite rankings, which takes all the recruiting services into account. Colorado has 5 4-stars committed under Dion. That's the most they've ever had in his tenure for high school athletes. They bring in a ton of high-profile transfers, but for high school recruits, Colorado off to a really strong start. And then West Virginia seeking back-to-back top 25 classes, and Utah rounds out the top 5. And then Iowa State checks in at number 6. Again, this looks very different than it did this time last year.
So I want to give a lot of kudos to the former Cedar Hill High School head coach, now Texas Tech head coach, Joey McGuire, for being at the top. Not surprising to me. Colin Klein, I give a lot of credit to that for your Kansas State Wildcats, because I think this says a lot about him, trying to get recruits to come to Kansas State. I was actually a little shocked to see them at number 2.
Same.
But I think that's, what Colin Klein is trying to build in Kansas State it's promising. It's promising. And Colorado, I'm not surprised with Dion. West Virginia and Utah, Rich Rod, Morgan Scalley, I give him a lot of credit there too, for a lot of the same reasons that I just gave for Colin Klein. So I think this is, surprising, but I think promising for the Big 12.
Yeah, Kansas State has never recruited at this level that we've seen in year 1 of the Colin Klein run in Manhattan. All right, coming up next to try and break down the Protect College Sports Act, what happened, but maybe even more than that, Pete Dacos from On3 is all over the eligibility stuff. He will be our guest around the corner. That's Taman. I'm James. We are powered by Modelo here on Big 12 Radio. You're watching us on Big 12 Studios.
Attack the defense with your mind. Here he is. Morton, it's a deep ball. Left sideline, dropping it right in for Virgil. Oh, what a ball from Baron Morton. Derek Morris, beautiful pass. I mean, that's a big league throw. That is a clinic again to Reggie Virgil for a first down.
This is a BB. Like, that is a difficult throw to make, and what a catch.
Williams stays in, play fake. Morton well protected, spins one, end zone, caught! He drops it in the buckets. Coy Aiken reels it in, 42 yards.
Baron Morton wants another touchdown for the road, and he's got it for Douglas. He finds his own camera on the touchdown. 21 coming in. He'd actually be a lot better than that as the season prolongs. On a fly, at the corner, it's Aiken. It is touchdown. How do you do?
Here's
Back inside Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. This is the Big 12 Conference. It's a different league, and we are exclusively on TuneIn, watched on the Big 12 Fast Channel, Big 12 Studios, powered by our friends at Modelo. Pete Nakos joins us from On3. I thought, Pete, that I had fully digested the eligibility ruling that came down Friday, and then I get on air and I go to unpack it, and I just find myself talking in circles. So help us out here. Break it down. It's confusing. It's messy, but ultimately, what is it?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
There he is. Pete, can you hear us?
Yeah, I sure can. How are you guys doing today? Happy Monday.
Oh, man, we're fantastic. You can hear us now. Okay, good stuff.
Yep.
All right, so,
Okay.
yeah, what I said, Pete, was, I thought I had this eligibility ruling digested. I go to unpack it, and I'm just talking in circles because it's confusing and it's messy. So we bring on guys like you, the pros, the real pros, to break it down for us. What does it all mean?
Yeah, Friday's decision appeared to be a really big deal, and it still is because it grants a fifth-year eligibility to the class of 2022 recruits. But at the same time, the order is not going to have any impact on the transfer portal opening or roster limits changing or anything like that. So the idea of player movement with a fifth-year eligibility is super complicated and appears to be not happening. But at the same time, there's other lawsuits across the country that are opening the portal for certain other athletes. But this Colorado lawsuit is not going to do that.
Pete, the Protect College Sports Act, it seems like the SEC and the Big Ten finally agreed to come in. What I don't want to use the word cave, but what caused them to jump on board?
It's a great question. I think a lot of Senators Ted Cruz and Marie Cantwell made the concessions that were asked, and that was a big deal. Specifically about the player retention pool to raise the salary cap, basically, and then on top of that, too, I think that the Colorado decision on Friday night had a lot to do with just the mounting pressure of eligibility lawsuits and the idea that for the Big Ten and SEC needing Congress to step in and how that was going to be critical.
So, Pete, with the eligibility ruling, so this is all high school athletes from the class of 22. But
no, I mean, this is all college athletes who finished their fourth-year eligibility in the spring who were from the class of 22.
Got it. So who does it exclude that I guess would be from the class of 22? Is there, I'm a little confused on if a guy transferred or what the differences are.
Yeah, it would exclude the NCAA saying that it would exclude an athlete who signed a professional contract with the NFL right now in terms of college football terms. I think this really benefits an athlete who went undrafted right this spring in the NFL draft and could actually maybe make a return to college football. I think the pool of athletes at the college football level that it actually impacts is probably much smaller than you would initially think because so many athletes have either gone to the NFL that would be really the impact players. The other thing I keep hearing from front office staffers across the country too is that while it would be great to get our, starting defensive tackle back, he's been working in the workforce for the past 5 months, and who knows what kind of playing shape he's in right now.
Pete, with the increased salary cap in the Protect College Sports Act, what happens to the College Sports Commission, and is it in jeopardy?
With the Protect College Sports Act, no. I mean, the College Sports Commission would just grow. It really just gives them more power and enforcement to oversee things. So no, it wouldn't hamper them at all.
Pete Nakos from On3, the college football reporter, joins us here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. And Pete, that's a great point about guys that haven't played football in 6 months, that are working at Home Depot or selling insurance or whatever the case may be, running a Fortune 500 company, who knows, and their playing shape. So if I'm understanding correctly, the pool for college football is going to be much smaller than, say, college basketball. And also, like, we're just a few days away from camp. So I guess why so late in the summer that this all went down?
For the court ruling?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just more so in nature of the legal system and how it took shape and how long that took and stuff like that. I don't think it has any other reason than one, the NCAA put the age-based eligibility model in place this spring, and then obviously the lawsuits that followed, and this was just the timeline that came about.
And then the other question that I had about the Protect College Sports Act is with the new salary cap, there's a difference between a retention pool and then the other portion of the cap. I look at the number and see like the $48.8 million or whatever that actual number is. How many college football programs that aren't in the SEC or the Big Ten are even sniffing that number?
Sniffing the current
like the
rev share cap?
the 48 million. Like my question is, do you foresee?
I mean, I think almost every Power 4 school would be able to hit that number.
Okay, every power conference school?
Yeah, I would say probably yes, because if you look at it right now in football, the top football rosters themselves are spending over $40 million. So we're talking about an all-in rev share cap in the $40 million range. Yeah, I think every school could reach that.
Pete, with the NCAA and this ruling in Colorado, obviously Charlie Baker was very upset with the ruling. Well, the NCAA is to my knowledge, I guess they're planning to respond in court.
Yeah, they filed an appeal. They filed an appeal this morning.
Yeah, how will that, how do you think that will all play itself out?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to ask for an expedited appeal. I believe they also asked for a stay of the injunction, meaning they want the judge to rule to stay the injunction. So the NCAA is going to be really aggressive about having this overturned and stayed, and they're going to try to minimize this as much as possible. I think there's a thought Friday of, okay, does the NCAA just issue a blanket waiver instead of trying to, having an ongoing legal battle, but the NCAA has made clear that they want to fight this and have it overturned.
And one thing that Charlie Baker keeps saying in kind of response to that is, this is why, legislation from Congress is needed. With the Protect College Sports Act perhaps giving a green light, is it too late for the NCAA to kind of get what they want? Or how does this ruling kind of affect them, in the future with the Protect College Sports Act looking to be imminent?
I mean, I think everything that's happening in Congress right now is a good thing for the NCAA. I think the timeline on all of it is probably going to be a little dragged out. That's for sure, because even if it makes it to the Senate floor this week, then you're talking about a month-long recess, and then the soonest the House can get to a vote on it is maybe the end of September, early October, give or take. So, I mean, this is like a months-long thing, and then on the flip side, the NCAA has to try to put out a fire right now with what's going on in Colorado. And it's just a confusing time in college sports.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. And as exciting as it is to talk about Congress and bills and eligibility rulings, man, I'm just ready for some football. And week 0 will be later this month. Pete, fall camp is here. Who are some of the quarterback battles that have been won, that have been lost, that are up for grabs? Not just in the Big 12, but when you look at some of the top programs in the country.
Yeah, you look at the top programs in the country, and the quarterback battles you think of right now are Alabama with Austin Mack and Keelan Russell, Tennessee with George McIntyre and Faison Brandon, Florida, North Carolina, Clemson are all going to have battles. Kirk Ferentz has been pretty open about the idea that he's probably going to have an ongoing battle maybe into the season. Big 12 wise, I wouldn't call it a battle because they named him quarterback 1, but obviously there's questions about Will Hammond and stuff. Following Brendan Sorsby departure, Will Hammond's going to be, the starter week 1 for Texas Tech, if all goes according to plan on his recovery timeline. West Virginia brought in Michael Hawkins from Oklahoma. He's really impressed. From everything I've heard this spring, he's battling with Scotty Fox. A few other ones out there too. Cincinnati brought in J.C. French. I don't believe they've actually named him the starter yet, but all the kind of intel backs him. And then Lance Leipold's got a two-man battle right now with Cole Ballard and Isaiah Marshall and Lawrence. You got Cole, who is like the experienced guy, has waited his turn behind Jalen Daniels, but there's definitely someone who's excitement about what Isaiah Marshall could bring to the offense. So we'll see how long that one plays out. I probably give Ballard the leg up at this point, but we'll see how it kind of plays out. And then Arizona State too. They brought in Cutter Boley and then brought in Mikey Keene as a backup, and then they have a true freshman who has some serious upside. But I'd be surprised if Cutter Boley doesn't start week 1 for the Sun Devils.
Yeah, same here. Who are the quarterbacks at? Because TCU plays North Carolina, week 0 in the Dublin game. Who are the quarterbacks that are battling it out in Chapel Hill?
Yeah, you really get Billy Edwards, the former Maryland and Wisconsin quarterback, going head-to-head with Miles O'Neill from Texas A&M, who has experience with Bobby Petrino from their time at A&M. Miles and Billy are really splitting first-team reps right now from everything I've been told, so I think it's kind of tough to say who has the edge. Obviously, when you look at quarterback battles, you typically give the edge to the guys with the most experience, and that would be Billy Edwards. So we'll see how it plays out. But we all know, Bill Belichick's not really going to show his cards before they fly to Dublin to play a football game.
Yeah, I think that's a given. Awesome. Pete Nakos, College Football Insider from On3. Pete, appreciate your time. Thanks for hopping on and clearing all this up. Good stuff.
You bet. Have a good one, guys.
Right,
Thanks, Pete.
See you, Pete. That is Pete Nakos, College Football Insider for On3, breaking down the eligibility ruling that came down on Friday, what it could mean for class of 22 athletes that still have now, at least as of today, this could all change eligibility moving forward. Coming up next, rising quarterbacks for the 2026 season. The Big 12 dominates this list. We'll tell you who's on it and why, and then who else from the Big 12 that was omitted could make this list. Jamie Pollard, the AD at Iowa State, is joining us next hour, as well as John Cunningham, the AD of Cincinnati, because a little bit later on, we will launch our brand new series in hour number 3, Countdown to Kickoff, highlighting Cincinnati today. We'll be going through each and every Big 12 school over the next few weeks. We are less than 30 days out from the start of the college football season. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, exclusively on TuneIn. We are brought to you, the Full-Time Fan, by Modelo.
Bell is in the corner for Wyoming. And Sam Levitt on the move, completes the pass. There's Mateer, the tight end, and into the end zone for an ASU touchdown. Shimon Mateer.
Levitt rolling out, throwing to the end zone. Touchdown, Mateer.
.17 to go until halftime. Levitt will throw short to the tight end. There he goes. Touchdown, Sun Devils. Mateer, 16 yards, and it's 20-0.
Steps out of the tackle. Will throw again. That's a touchdown. And it's Mateer back in the game.
Already run 52 plays. Rudo gets his chance. They fake it to him, set up the tight end screen. Shimon Mateer to the outside for a touchdown.
3rd and 8. The adjustment is made. Mateer, flag down, catch is made, touchdown, Shimon Mateer.
5-minute mark, 8th play of the drive. This one down the seam for a touchdown. Shimon Mateer with an 18-yard score.
Back here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Heard exclusively on TuneIn. We are brought to you, the full-time fan, by Modelo, where there is no off-season. The off-season only means research, and today we dive into our Countdown to Kickoff series, starting with Cincinnati. What do we know about the Bearcats? What don't we know? What has to happen for Cincinnati to win a football game in the month of November and be a serious contender in this league? We'll be going through some camp battles to watch, injury news, depth chart locks. I don't know that I agree with Pete Nakos saying that J.C. French has locked up QB1. They did bring him to media days, which means he's probably their quarterback. But like Pro Football Focus had, and I can't even remember the kid's last name, the backup who was at Penn last year, who was like all league in the Ivy League, as one of the top returning quarterbacks in the Big 12 statistically in terms of his metrics. So maybe there is a quarterback battle in Cincinnati. We'll be talking with Scott Springer, the Bearcats beat writer for the Cincinnati Enquirer, a little bit later on in the program.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to, James, this quarterback talk. There's a lot of Big 12 quarterbacks on this list that we have coming up here, and my favorite is the one who's at the top of the list, and Will Hammond, because I was a Will Hammond fan a year ago. I know he was backup to Baron Morton, and there's been all this Texas Tech drama in the offseason. But, you know, this was supposed to be Will Hammond's team. Brendan Sorsby comes in. I get it. We all get it. Nobody argued the debate. But Sorsby's not playing for Texas Tech. He's never going to play for Texas Tech. But you know who is? Will Hammond. And Will Hammond last year, before his injury, before he tore his ACL, this was a guy who who came in as a backup, played against Texas Tech, and played well. He's a good quarterback, and I think that I don't want to say we're underestimating him, because I don't think we are. I think the concerns that we have about Will Hammond are simply due to because he got injured last year. If he hadn't have gotten injured last year and Baron Morton, played out the season, no issues, no torn ACL, I think we'd be like, yeah, Texas Tech, they got themselves a stud at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, the comp for me is Richie Saunders for BYU men's basketball. We know how good Richie Saunders is as a player. He was drafted early in the second round of this recent NBA draft. That's the only difference I see between Hammond and Saunders, is Saunders had a larger body of work. Will Hammond's body of work was about half the year. But what we saw from him was very encouraging. And to me, it's almost like that version of Will Hammond is a serviceable, good quarterback. But the growth, natural progression of a quarterback who plays 4 or 5 or 6 games versus a guy who plays the entire season, I think gets lost in this whole thing. And this list is from The Athletic. Last week we broke down, they ranked all 138 Division I quarterbacks. They put them in different tiers, yada, yada. This is their rising quarterbacks list. And number 1 is Kamario Taylor from Mississippi State. He's big. He's kind of built like Cam Newton, except he's a little bit faster. He's just really raw. He was their change of pace option for Blake Shapen last year, the former Baylor quarterback. But number 2 on this list, and it's nice to see Will Hammond getting some love, because it's pretty clear to me, Pete Nakos from On3 just said it, Joey McGuire has said it, Will Hammond himself has said it when he joined us less than 2 weeks ago on this show. He's going to be on the field week 1 against Abilene Christian.
Who's going to be on the field against Abilene Christian for week 1 against Texas Tech? Or against Texas Tech's quarterback?
Will rhymes with Hammond, Will Hammond.
Will Hammond. And I'm all for it. I'm buying it. Listen, there's an old saying in sports, you know your body better than anyone else. And, of course, we all know for a fact Will Hammond's going to say, well, I'm going to play. I'm ready to play. I'm ready to play. When you have not only Will Hammond saying it, you have Joey McGuire saying it, Terrence Carter at Media Day said it. Will Hammond's going to be the starting quarterback, and I think he's earned that. I respect his fight for coming back from an awful injury, a torn ACL last season, and really, for him to be not only physically prepared to play the game, but mentally prepared, just knowing what he went through this offseason. And what I say that is the Sorsby factor, because whether we like it or not, if you're prepared to be the starting quarterback, Sorsby comes in, everybody's expecting him to be the starting quarterback. And Joey McGuire said, Terrence Carter said, Will Hammond came in every single day saying, I am going to be the starter. And guess what? Week 1, Abilene Christian, he's going to be the starter. I like it. I love it.
It's interesting to me over the weekend. I saw Sam Levitt, the former Arizona State quarterback who's now at LSU, spoke publicly for the first time.
I saw that.
And confirmed that he's getting like $4 million to be the LSU quarterback. Well, Sorsby was getting $5 million at Texas Tech, which just further solidified who Texas Tech prioritized when it came to the portal. But the point that they note, the guys at The Athletic, and deserve a tremendous amount of credit for, when it comes to Will Hammond, what gets lost, I think, in the weeds of this whole off-season drama, ready for TV made series, is that Mac Leftwich is back as the offensive coordinator, and he loves a dual threat scrambling quarterback. That's a dimension that they definitely prioritized with Sorsby, that they didn't have with Baron Morton, that might be Will Hammond's number 1 skill. So the closest comparison for Leftwich, the offensive coordinator, is when he coached Lindsey Scott. Lindsey Scott was the FCS Heisman Trophy winner. They call it the Walter Payton Award. He shattered a bunch of FCS records. The one season that Mac Leftwich coached him at Incarnate Word, this was pre-Cam Ward. Like Cam Ward walked into a job and took over for the guy that statistically was better than anybody else. Better than Cam Ward, better than any FBS quarterback back in 2022. And that was under Mac Leftwich. The head coach, FYI, was Eric Morris, who's now the head coach at Oklahoma State, right? It's Kevin Bacon, 6 degrees of separation, it's all connected. My point in saying that is what gets lost in this is Mac Leftwich and what he has done as an offensive coordinator with a quarterback who has the scrambling ability that Will Hammond has.
I love it. I the way you just broke that down was a masterclass, by the way, because the common denominator here is Mac Leftwich. But listen, Will Hammond, I think that he is primed for a big year, and I think he has a chip on his shoulder, and I think that he has that naturally because when we had him on a couple of weeks ago, he was a competitor, and he showed that. And I don't think he'll ever say it, but I think he'll look back at it and say, you guys wanted somebody else over me. And I'm going to prove to you why I deserve this job. And I think he's going to show that this year.
Totally agree. The other Big 12 quarterbacks on this list, checking in at number 3, again, these are rising quarterbacks for this season, is Cutter Boley, the Kentucky transfer who is expected to be QB1 for Arizona State. He's the most experienced quarterback on the list, but frankly, he played on a bad football team with a coach that was a dead man walking at Kentucky last year. Still completed 66% of his passes. Still broke Jared Lorenzen's freshman record at Kentucky. He's going to be much improved in Kenny Dillingham's system. Even with Mikey Keene as the backup, applying maybe a little bit of pressure on him to win that job, Cutter Boley is 6'5", 240 pounds. He can run. He has an NFL-ready arm. Cutter Boley being at number 3, to me it magnifies like, hey, the Big 12's getting a little bit of love nationally in terms of some of these quarterbacks having breakthrough seasons.
I totally agree. And look, Cutter Boley being in Kenny Dillingham's system, remember when Sam Leavitt got hurt last year and everybody was like, well, Jeff Sims, what is he going to do? And Jeff Sims played really well. He played well when Leavitt was out. And listen, I'm not saying Cutter Boley is the second coming of Sam Leavitt, right? But I think under this system, and Dillingham brought this up at Media Days, how well he knows Cutter Boley. I think Cutter Boley is primed for another good year. I think this is a good system, a good fit for him. And I think that he has a run game behind him that will be able to help him. So I feel good about this. I like where he's ranked. And to your point about Big 12 quarterbacks kind of getting some love, they should get love because it seems like, and yes, I'm calling out Sam Leavitt, and I saw that article you put on the rundown. I want to talk about that too.
Okay.
It seems like the Big 12 quarterbacks get all the love when they quote unquote go to the SEC because, in Sam Leavitt's words, it's a different place.
Okay, more on that a little bit later on. My phone is
pettiness.
My phone is buzzing over here. I check it. Turns out it's producer Will.
Oh gosh,
Will, don't be shy. Chime in here.
That guy.
No, I'm never shy.
Don't be shy. Come on now.
I was just saying Taman Turner had a good take right there. And I think that a lot of people don't realize the chip on the shoulder with Will Hammond. I think that was a good take. And I wasn't surprised because Taman Turner always has great takes. But
oh God, I don't know about great.
But for him sitting in that chair and just talking about it, I do think it's a point that a lot of people just don't bring up. He was a legend from Austin, Texas, was always so great, wanted to play, went to campus early, backup redshirt, and then got that little bit of a dose of it last year. But I also think Taman Turner might be putting a lot of faith in a guy that's just a sophomore, but we'll see what he does.
Taman, you just got a taste of the ultimate hype man, which is Will Connerly.
He said, I always have great takes. No offense, I'm going to use my favorite word, my favorite phrase. I don't think I always have great takes, but I appreciate the hype, Mr. Connerly.
Like, we could be breaking down preseason left guards, and Will celebrate
He's going to come
like
in.
we just landed on the moon.
Well, there's a lot that goes into a take, right? And I'm not the end-all, be-all in terms of judging it, but the way you get to the take is important. And I think that he got to it in a good way. And James Westling will do that a lot, too. And that's why we're here, Big 12.
I'll say this one last thing about Will Hammond. I keep going back to what Terrence Carter said, and Bryce Pollock agreed with him. I keep thinking back at media days. They said Will Hammond is obsessed with football. He is obsessed with it. Like, he breathes it, and all throughout the offseason, Joey McGuire said this too. Like, he's ready to go. He's ready to go. And, I think that I believe him when he says it. And I think it's interesting, too, because when Baron Morton got hurt last season, we kept asking Joey McGuire, who's his starting quarterback? And he said Baron Morton. And we were like, really? Because Will Hammond might be there. And I know Barron's gone, but I think Joey McGuire really got to see what Will Hammond was made of. And I think he's yet to see it too, based on everything that has happened with his injury, based on everything that's happened this offseason. I think that, be afraid. Be very afraid of Will Hammond.
Will Connerly, where does the hype, ultimate enthusiasm, let's build up others come from? Because it is your number one trait that stands out to me, and I love it about you. We recorded like a 15-second liner. You were on vacation. Me and Ari had to crank out like these 15-second liners. Will's on the phone with Anthony, like telling him he just witnessed greatness. Like Anthony, these guys, they're just elite at cutting these promos. I've never seen anything like it.
So you want to know where it comes from.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It comes from probably, I was raised by my parents, my mom and my dad, and they always taught me about the golden rule.
Okay.
They taught me about treating others the way you want to be treated. So I want to lift you up. I want to encourage you. And also, I just think it's a thing I've adopted, and I just want to continue to do that. That's really about it.
Dude, it's amazing.
That's great.
It's amazing.
But this segment's not about Will Connerly. It's about Will Hammond. So
See, look at
back
that.
to-
Look at that.
I love the transition he did there, too.
But
He
Humble.
yeah,
And those are, I mean, they are good takes, though.
old-fashioned values.
Yes.
Parents, you shout at them out.
Well, kind of like Hammond. He works hard. He's working hard to come back from ACL. And a lot of people don't think he can. And so you want to do things and continue to put your head down and work hard. And, I mean, if you want to talk about people working hard behind the scenes, that's Anthony on this show. So we got a lot of guys.
Look at this.
Look at the love,
This
Anthony.
guy. Like, he goes home, he tells his wife, like, you had to be there. You had to see it. He's got tears in his eyes. I love it. It's awesome, man.
Have you guys seen those reels with the Netflix documentary
Oh, yeah.
music?
Yeah.
That's going to be Will Connerly about how you become hype man. He'll be sitting there. You'll have the Netflix music.
I'm here
The
for
ultimate hype man.
When I
Will
was
Connerly.
12.
It's great. That's good. One other, so there's actually like two more Big 12 quarterbacks that make this list. Julian Lewis from Colorado checks in at number 5. He was mostly a backup last year as a 17-year-old freshman for a 3-win football team. He is a guy that I think would fade from the spotlight nationally. So it's awesome to me that The Athletic highlights him as a top 5 like rising quarterback, because he had a game against West Virginia where he completed 22 of 35. He had 300 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. Maybe more important than ever, he had 0 interceptions in any game. Like, Julian Lewis has not thrown a collegiate interception.
Well, look, Juju Lewis is playing in a new offense, in Brennan Marion's offense, the go-go offense. Ari has actually been pretty high on Colorado, considering everything they've kind of gone through. Dion is healthy this year. He's cancer-free. Some of the things that he thinks kind of limited Colorado last season. They brought in Danny Scudero. They have a strong wide receiver room. I think that this I see why he's on this list, because I think that he has everything to gain, especially in the new offense. He doesn't turn the ball over a lot. I'm okay with this. I like it.
Michael Hawkins was the other guy that made this top 10. the Oklahoma transfer at West Virginia, who's battling with Scotty Fox for QB1 out in Morgantown. That is the Big 12 dominating this list of rising quarterbacks for the season. 4 of the top 10 nationally that they've identified, this is from The Athletic, make the cut. All right, coming up next here on Big 12 Today, we dive into some AD interviews. We are trying to connect with all 16 athletic directors before the start of the college football season. We have began that process. Jamie Pollard, the Iowa State athletic director. This will be a replay. And then John Cunningham. So back-to-back ADs in the league. It's really interesting to hear their perspective on NIL, on just leadership in general, because Pollard has announced he's retiring. This time next year, Jamie Pollard will officially be retired. He's spent over 20 years as the AD at Iowa State. He's coming up around the corner. That's Taman. I'm James. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, brought to you by Modelo.
Potential
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, coming to you each and every weekday, 8A to 11A, right here on the channel, exclusively on TuneIn. You're watching us on Big 12 Studios. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. And this man already got his morning run in. Jamie Pollard is the athletic director at Iowa State. He joins us now on the show. And, Jamie, I almost called you Coach. Coach Jamie Pollard. You oversee everything Iowa State. Huge fan of just everything you've done the last 20-plus years. And you recently had a big announcement in terms of your retirement. So walk us through it, what led to the decision, and walk us through the next, 12 months or so.
Well, it's something my wife and I had just always talked about, that, at the point in time you transition to whatever that next is, that you want to do it while you're young and healthy enough that, you can go enjoy it. And I originally had kind of targeted I was going to do it at 60, which would have been 2 years ago. But our prior president, informed me she was going to retire. So we didn't think it was good for both of us to retire at the same time. So here I find myself 2 years later and just felt it was time to do it, and look forward to, being on the other side of the fence and being a fan.
As you've had some time to reflect in your career, you initially started as a CPA, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yep. Worked for Arthur Anderson and Company back in the late 80s.
So I guess, what went into that, and why were you like, this is just not for me? Kind of how'd you transition?
Well, it's a great question, Ari. I left college, went to work for Arthur Anderson in Milwaukee, and I'd been a student athlete. I was a cross-country track runner, and if I did it all over again, I would do the same thing. But what I quickly learned is it wasn't as enjoyable as I had envisioned it would be, and I missed the competitive part. And so I went back and talked to my college coach, who had become the athletics director at my alma mater, Wisconsin Oshkosh. And he said, have you ever thought about working in college athletics? And quite frankly, I never had. I knew what my coach did, but that was about it. I never realized all the administrative stuff. So bottom line is I got lucky. I got hired as a business manager at St. Louis University. And I was blessed to be able to work for Debbie Yao, and she grew me up really fast and mentored me and took me with her to the University of Maryland, and that just kind of started my career.
Jamie Pollard is the athletic director at Iowa State, and as you noted, Jamie, this time next year you'll be a fan. You'll get to sit back and enjoy these games from a fan perspective. So, in terms of your fandom, what would you like to see 2-3 years from now for the sport of college football?
Well, for the sport of college football, I hope that we can come to a mutual understanding that more is better and less is not better. We historically is over a long period of time, have been on this slow death march to kind of keep realigning. And, I said it when Oregon State and Washington State got left behind, that, that was not going to be the end. It was, kind of the beginning of this new era of it. And at the pace we're going, there's going to be more of that if we don't, if there's not somebody who is either centrally in charge to kind of say what's good for the whole, or, we turn it over to Congress to tell us, and I get it. We don't like doing that, but we haven't been able to figure it out ourselves.
When you look at the way in which the role has changed of athletic director, how have you observed the changes? And then I also think you're in many ways, like, a big part of your background is in fundraising, and you did a tremendous job at Wisconsin in doing so, and then carried that over to Iowa State. But that seems to be the impetus for the types of athletic directors that are hired today, as opposed to maybe as importantly as it was when you were hired. So you're almost in some ways ahead of the curve that way, because now it feels like most athletic directors first and foremost have to be fundraisers. I'm just hoping you can comment on how you've seen that role evolve and change over the course of your time at Iowa State.
Well, I think what you find, Ari, is over time, we go through cycles of, what's the, magic pill, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what your background is. It comes back down to you have leadership skills, because the job is being a public leader, and there's going to be arrows coming at you all day long. And a lot of times when they hit you in the back, people like to also jiggle it around a little, and that's not going to go away, right? And quite frankly, with the onslaught of social media platforms, there's just many more ways for people to shoot the arrows at you.
Yeah.
But it's a public leadership position, and it's no different than being the president, being a senator, being a state representative. I mean, who even gets 50% of the vote anymore? You win the office by maybe getting 40%, and the other person gets 30%, and 30% of the people don't even show up. And so the job is a really challenging public leadership position. But whether you're a fundraiser, you're a CPA, you're an ops person, everybody's got their, in their kind of arsenal, they've got their foundational education and skill set. But if you don't have leadership skills, you don't have a chance.
Jamie, if I was a young, up-and-coming athletic director, what advice would you give me about leadership?
Well, what I'd remind you is at the end of the day, it all comes back down to relationships. And the art of leadership is understanding the fact that it isn't about you, it's about all the people that are following you. And so figuring out, why do they follow you? And that's an art. But that's the best leaders know how to really motivate and excite their followers, because the definition of leadership is really about follows. I call it should be called fellowship, because you got to inspire people, and so a big part of that is communication skills, but you also have to be able to deliver. You can go talk to people and promise a whole bunch of good things, but they're going to start looking for results. And if you can't lead in a way that delivers results, you won't be in that position very long. But at the same time, if you're just result oriented, people don't understand what the mission is. They don't understand why you're doing that. And so you got to put those two together. And so I would tell people that, you've got to learn about relationships of people and figuring out how do you get people to trust you? How do you get people to follow you? And so much of that is just blocking and tackling communication and relationships.
Last segment we were talking about the backup quarterbacks, and as a coach, you have to sort of have contingency plans in mind. I liken it to athletic directors when it comes to coaches. Even though you want to believe that your coach in football will be there forever, you've got to have in the back of your mind that he won't. You've got to have a short list. And I would imagine that was the case for you and Matt Campbell, because Matt was introduced as Penn State's head coach the same day as you introduced Jimmy Rogers as head coach at Iowa State. So just take us through that. And was Jimmy on your radar for how long was Jimmy on your radar?
About 2 years prior. And, that you're right. I don't know if it's as, specific, the old sayings, people say, oh, I've got in my desk drawer like 3 names. And I think that's probably overblown. To me, it's a constant exercise to just be aware of what is happening and who's up and coming, and not be so caught up in the flavor of the day. Whenever there's an opening, the media, for me, there's an AD opening now, right? And I noticed the Des Moines Register yesterday had a headline, who's going to replace Jamie? And I click on it, and, my 8-month-old new grandchild probably could have created that list, because there was no real research or thought to it, right? It was just paint the obvious. And as a leader, you got to be bigger than that. You got to be more thorough than that. In Jimmy's case, I'll give you a great example. And then, going back to James's question, is Jimmy's representative Thayer Evans had been on me for a long time to take part in a workshop he does every year for his clients. And, I just was like, one more thing I want to do in the summer, like go spend a weekend someplace. But I did it that year, and it was in Austin, and it was, your wives were included, and he had 10 of his clients. They were all either assistant or head coaches, and he had 10 combination of AD, presidents, search firms. And we spent a weekend in Austin at a hotel doing one-on-one interviews, doing group sessions. It was fascinating, right? And that's where I met Jimmy. Wow. And his wife Haley, and we spent a good part of that weekend together. And one of the things Jimmy said to me in my one-on-one with him was, help me understand, what do I need to do? And at that time he was the head coach at South Dakota State. He had just won a national championship. And he said, what do I need to do if Matt Campbell leaves, that I'd be the first person you'd call?
Wow.
And I'm not saying that's why he went to Washington State, but that was one of the steps I suggested he think about. And he did that. We stayed in contact with each other, and he was the first person I called.
That is an amazing backstory into Jimmy Rogers, who we are super excited to see what this season looks like. And then also, when it comes to like men's basketball, for lack of a better question, how are you able to retain TJ Otzelberger, who's just been incredible what he's done with that program?
Well, TJ and I got to know each other 19 years ago. He was one of Greg McDermott's first hires. He was basically the restricted earnings coach. He was a young kid from Wisconsin that was an assistant coach at Chipotle Junior College, and Greg asked me to meet with him to kind of, Greg wanted my blessing that I would let him hire somebody like that. And that began a long friendship between TJ and me, and a mentorship that, when Greg left to go to Creighton, when we had hired Fred asked me what's the first thing he should do, and I said we should convince TJ to stay as your lead assistant. And so Fred said, go get it done. And so, we convinced TJ to stay on Fred's staff. And then we did the same exact thing with Coach Prohm and convinced him to stay on with Steve Prohm. Wow. And then eventually we helped him, get his first job at South Dakota State as a head. And then, Desiree leaned into me to when she was considering hiring him at UNLV. And so, we stayed, we've got a relationship that's 18 years long. And quite frankly, that contributed a lot to him staying.
Yeah, relationships for sure, something I know that's important to you and a big reason for your success. Last thing I want to ask you is about this monster deal. There's been a lot made of it publicly, especially relative to the Ohio State Notre Dame deals. We've talked a lot on this show about just the discrepancy between comparing those and how widespread the monster deal is for the Big 12. Just give us your vantage point of that monster deal.
Well, first of all, the people that are making that comparison don't even know what they're comparing,
right?
Because it's an apple and an orange.
Right.
What they need to do is look at KU. KU's got their patch that they've just announced and sold for a big number, but then they're also going to have a patch on the other side that's part of the Big 12 logo that they're getting $1 million for. And so these schools that are talking about, well, this school got this compared to $1 million. No, what I would say is that school got that, but they're not getting anything from their conference, right? So it's an apple and an orange. And the devil will be in the detail on any school deal about all the other stuff you're giving that sponsor versus what I know we're either giving or not giving the Monster Energy deal. So the Monster Energy deal is basically just co-branding the Big 12 logo, and it's not taking up any inventory or space on our campus that the Big 12 didn't already have. They have their logo on the court, they have their logo on the field, and it's going to be a smaller Big 12 logo with the Monster Energy. So they're not taking up any bigger footprint, but we're getting $1 million for something that we were getting zero for. Not to mention, I go back to, and I've grown, Brett Yormark and I, personally, he and I have come a long ways. When he first started, I probably wasn't his biggest champion because I didn't think he understood college athletics. But I give Brett a ton of credit for listening and growing and trying And he's been a warrior for the Big 12, and I have a lot of respect for him pushing a ball up the hill. And he has stayed with us, and this deal is really him trying to help us. And, it's no different than what we talked about earlier. People are always going to throw arrows at you, shoot arrows at you. And, he's a public leader, and he's outspoken for, quote, the little guy, and people like to pick on those people. But I appreciate what he's done, and that kind of new age demographic of the 25 to 35-year-old, I always say the real art of leadership is being willing to make decisions that the ultimate results of those decisions won't happen on your watch. Because make decisions that'll change generations, right? And so Brett's making a lot of decisions in that younger demographic age group, the WWE, all the things he tries to do. And those results, if they're going to be positive, will probably manifest themselves 10, 15, 20 years down the road, that he might not even be the leader to enjoy that.
Well, the word warrior is the perfect word to define both of you guys and all of your accomplishments and just the way you guys think. All right, walk us through Jamie Pollard, Iowa State AD. August of 2027, are you still checking the athletic fund from your phone on a beach chair? Are you bored out of your mind? I mean, you ADs, you guys are wired to be busy.
You know what? I've kind of approached it and go, I'm pretty confident. I've yet to find one person that have told me you won't like retirement. And I'm not getting too caught up in like specifically what I'm going to do. I know like what our cadence is going to be. We have a place in Arizona. I plan to spend the winters in Arizona. We have a place at the lake that I'll spend my summers here in Iowa. My wife and I are going to buy a suite for our kids and our family for the football games. So I plan to still go to Cyclone football. Probably won't get to as much basketball because I'll be in Arizona. But, plan to go to the Big 12 tournament and go to any postseason. My son is one of the coaches. Yeah. I got another son that coaches at Northern Iowa. So if we're not there, we'll be watching it on TV. So August of 27, I'll probably be at the lake getting ready for the start of football season and looking to support Coach Rogers all I can.
I'm pretty sure I just heard Ari say, "Take me with you." So sounds fantastic. Jamie, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much
You're the best.
for your time.
Congrats.
Well, thank you for what you guys do to help promote our league. We really do appreciate it. And, just thank you. Thank you. This might be the last time I'm ever on this show, so thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're the best.
Appreciate you.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Jamie. Iowa State Athletic Director Jamie Pollard joining us here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. Coming up next hour, we dive into some Big 12 Football Media Day recaps, highlighting two schools. Today we touch on Texas Tech and BYU, and then Brian Santiago, the AD at BYU, will be joining us here in about a half hour. He's Ari, I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio. We are brought to you by Modelo.
That's an amazing stat when you consider how Iowa State was. Never really had a hold of that too well, but how many points had something to do with it. Watch him right here. Just come across, just get across the line as fast as you can. Snap it and go. And blow up the play.
Boy, the hit by Orange, but he might be seeing black right now. That was a big-time play.
2nd and 8 at the 26. And they'll move straight ahead. Nothing doing, that's right. Dominic Orange in the middle. The bigs.
They're doing this with only 5 guys in the interior defenders. And they're going against 6 guys, including the tight end. But look how fast the safeties trigger downhill. They get in there to defend the run. That's the key to this structure of defense. Gus, they play 3 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, 5 defense.
11 is pressured, and 11 is gobbled up. Taken down by Dominic Orange.
John Cunningham, the athletic director at Cincinnati, is joining us here on Big 12 Radio, along with James Westlake. I'm Ari Temkin. How are you, John?
I'm doing well, guys. Good to be with you this morning.
Yeah, appreciate your time. I will say, we're spending time visiting with administrators across the conference. It's probably a really good time to be an athletic director that's also a lawyer.
I went to law school, graduated, got my bar in Texas, and then never practiced. And I specifically didn't want to be around lawyers every day, and now that's all I do. So I somehow managed to get right back to where maybe I was trying to avoid. But I know just enough to get myself into trouble. But we have some really great lawyers that are helping us through this, and it's every day trying to figure this thing out.
Yeah, I mean, just reading tweets from Ross Dellinger on the daily about the Protect College Sports Act, I feel like I need a law degree just to talk about it and just to ingest some of it. I mean, what's your vantage point of what's been going on with the Protect College Sports Act?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated. You have to kind of go back to civics class to remember how a bill becomes a law and remember sort of how it works. And so it's been very interesting. It's been a long journey, to be honest with you. I mean, I've been to DC now, I think 3 times, and I know a lot of ADs have been a lot more than I have. But you're going there and you're trying to make a case that we really need some assistance. We need some structure. Everybody knows we need some structure. What does that look like? How do we get to a place in the near future that we all understand the game that we're playing, and then we can, as an institution, decide what level we want to play within the parameters that we have. And that's, I think, the ultimate goal. But the transfer rules are going to be really important to get those in check. And then also, obviously, sort of what does the cap look like? How extensive is that cap? What is it, a hard cap? Is it a soft cap? Can we put some parameters around that as well? So I think personally, you start with the transfer side first, and then you go to the money side, and then you can get to a really good spot eventually. We're trying to change this thing. We operated one way for 120 years, and we're trying to change this thing really in 2 or 3 years. And so it's going to be a little rocky. I think everybody has to understand that. We all have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable for a little while. But the product itself, as you guys know, you cover it every day, is too good to fail. And it's never been more popular. And so we will, promise you, we will get to a point where we figure this thing out and we operate with some rules.
Yeah, John, when you say, things are going to be a little bit rocky for a while, what is what does for a little while mean to you? What do you think is realistic in terms of getting things figured out?
Well, I'm still very much hopeful that the Saving College Sports Act gets through the Senate and then gets through the House, and that creates some stability there through that process. I mean, I think we really truly believe as a conference in a congressional help in this case. So we believe in that model. If it's not that, then maybe we're back to the drawing board. And trying to operate within the next 6 months or so to figure out what, I think the next marker for us, honestly, is what does the portal look like in January for football? And I think that we have to, as an industry, get our heads around like trying to get some parameters in place by that time. So in terms of timing, I think that's the next marker. But again, it's gonna even then we're gonna do something, and we're gonna have to adjust it, and we're gonna have to change it a couple times before it really, I think, levels out. Hopefully in the next couple of years.
John, how have you evaluated your football team over the last couple of years, and what are the expectations for this season?
Yeah, I mean, like everybody, you evaluate, from the start. You evaluate on wins and losses. I mean, that's the name of the game. So we certainly do that. But we entered into the Big 12 with a new coach. We entered into the Big 12 without a football facility at all. In terms of an indoor, we were building one at the time we entered into the Big 12, and so those first 2 years we're practicing in Nippert. We're practicing in Nippert in Cincinnati in November, and there's no, we're probably one of the only schools in the country that didn't have an indoor opportunity during that time. So there were just some challenges, as we started, and Coach Satterfield takes over. in this brand new world of NIL, and so we're trying to build that up at the same time. So certainly, in my view, he deserves a lot of credit for building us up. 3 wins, 5 wins, 7 wins. We went 5-4 in the Big 12 last year. Our marker is always, it starts really with the Big 12. Can we compete and win in the Big 12, and can we get to Dallas for the Big 12 championship? That's our goal every year, and so that will be the goal again this year. And I'm excited about what we bring back. I think we're one of the strongest offensive lines in the country, and we have 3 starters there, probably 3 NFL guys, and then we fit in with 2 guys that played a lot. So across the front on offense, we're going to be really good. I like what we've done in the transfer portal. I like the changes that we've made on defense with the new defensive coordinator. So I'm very hopeful and excited about the year, and I like what I see behind the scenes.
John, when it comes to basketball, like if the NCAA had expanded during Wes Miller's tenure, Cincinnati's probably a tournament team at least 2 or 3 of his 5 seasons. You hire Utah State's Jared Calhoun, Huggins guy, UC alum, just a perfect fit. Why the change, and what excites you most about what Calhoun's already done in terms of building a very impressive roster for year 1?
Yeah, it's tough. It wasn't an easy decision. I mean, we were good, but we weren't good enough to make the tournament in the 5 years under Coach Miller. And at Cincinnati, the expectation is that you make the NCAA tournament. That's who we are, and that's what we believe in. And so, made the difficult decision to make a change, and went out and found the guy, in my mind, that fits us perfectly. I mean, he was not only the hottest coach in the country, in my mind, coming with what he's done at Utah State, and even before that at Youngstown State, which is one of the most difficult jobs in the country. So had a great pedigree there. But he's also has ties to Cincinnati. He was on the Huggins staff when Bob Huggins was here doing great things. And so he has those ties. But really it was about, who he is as a person. As you get to know him, he's such a confident individual, but has a humility about him at the same time. And he's just a worker. And that always plays in Cincinnati. He's tough. He's tough-minded, and he's a worker. And I think, that's what people are looking for out of a Cincinnati basketball team. We're going to be gritty. We're going to grind. He's about defense. He's about a unique style of offense that kind of flows and scores a lot of points. So I think everybody around here is really excited. He had to go build a brand new team, completely brand new. Every single one of our players outside of one walk-on is new. But I think we did a really nice job in the portal to build a really nice team.
How do you figure out how to allocate funds across your athletic department?
Challenging. I mean, I think, and obviously everything got more challenging with NIL coming into play. Right. And so I think, it's like oxygen. It's the most important thing in the room is having some money. You got to have it. And then you got to figure out where it goes and who it goes to. And so I think, for me, it's a lot of conversations with my trusted staff here. I've got great individuals here that have been with me for a while. Maggie McKinley is our SWA, and she's right there. And John Daniels, our CFO, and Brad Pike oversees basketball. And so, honestly, it's kind of a group of 4 that sit in a room and talk about what we need to do as a department. And then I present it to the president and say, this is my plan of attack. This is where I think we can take advantage of the resources that we have. We've got to always operate a little bit above our resources. That just is going to be who we are. And so we understand that as well. But it's tricky to figure out because there's never enough. But we want to make sure that we're healthy in football, healthy in men's and women's basketball, volleyball, baseball, and then compete really well in the Olympic sports. That's kind of the way we approach it.
Talking Cincinnati today with their AD, John Cunningham, here on Big 12 Today. And I think that sometimes on the surface, people forget that the Big 12 is still very new in terms of the members that are in this conference. So with that full Big 12 revenue that kicks in, what does that do for a school like Cincinnati and just your future outlook?
Yeah, so we started the first 2 years in the Big 12. I should have mentioned that when I was talking about Coach Satterfield, taking over. We started the first 2 years as a half-share institution. So we had $18 million the first year, $19 million the second year, but now we're part of the full share, and it's made a huge difference. And luckily it came at the exact right time, which is exactly when revenue share kicked in, is when we became a full share school. So to be honest with you, the full share went directly to covering us being a full revenue share institution. And that was really important to us and our president to make sure that we could compete that way. So, that's where the dollars have been spent. And again, it couldn't have come at a better time. So it was crucial.
There's been a lot of noise around the monster deal with the Big 12. Just give us your perspective on it.
It's exciting. It goes right along with who Brett Yormark is, which is he's gonna be innovative, and he was great with the athletic directors and the presidents throughout this process and letting us know, hey, here are some options. This is what we could do if we want to do it. And I think he did a really nice job bringing Monster to the table. And it makes a lot of sense for us to be kind of first mover in this area and use our mark to combine with the great brand of Monster. It connects with a younger demographic, which I think we all really, really like. And it's about us. It's about being innovative, about being a little bit different. And I think it's a great deal. So we're all excited about it here and ready to jump in with Monster.
John, speaking of younger demographic, I would like to add that Cincinnati just has an awesome apparel look. You guys have some serious swag. How much credit should go to John Cunningham for the Nike, the Jordan deal, and just how awesome all these uniforms are that you're churning out happen to be?
Well, credit goes to others because we were at a point in time, we were coming off of we had a great relationship with Under Armour for a while, and we were just at a point in time where we had to find what the next iteration was going to be for us. And to be honest with you, it kind of started with a conversation around basketball, which was we were one of the original Jordan Brand schools. Mm-hmm. People, remember that or don't remember that, but we were one of the original. And so to go back to them, and we actually have an alum named Jamal Lucas that works for Jordan Brand, and so he was critical and pivotal to bringing that together. And so we were able to get Jordan Brand talking to us, and then we got Nike on board to cover our other programs. So we're Jordan Brand in basketball, Nike and everything else. And then honestly, the brand itself is just it's a great mark. It's always been a great mark. It's the best colors that I've ever been a part of. My wife loves the fact that we're black, red, and white rather than some of the other colors I've been a part of. I've been to 6 different schools. So it's great to wear. It's great to wear black and white and red and have the Jordan Brand. It's fantastic. And the Nike brand, obviously.
Mm-hmm. And you grew up in Lincoln, right?
I did. That's my hometown. Yeah.
Yeah. And did I read that growing up, your dad had season tickets to basketball, but you didn't really go to football games?
Yeah, I don't know how that got. Yeah, yes, that's true. I don't. We go to maybe one football game a year and go to some volleyball games, but we were diehard Nebraska basketball fans. That's what I remember most about growing up.
That's a rough deal.
It was until this past year. They made the Sweet 16, and he got season tickets in 1972. So you can do the math on whatever that is, and had never seen an NCAA tournament win out of his team. So I would put him in the category of Cleveland Browns fans and some other. Got Zach Stipe next to me. He's a big Cleveland Browns fan, so he may argue with me. But they were in that zone for a long time. But I'm really happy for them that they cracked the code, and happy for my dad that he got to see it happen.
Yeah,
guys.
I'm sure Zach won't argue with you on that one, by the way. There's not much of an argument. Go ahead.
Danny Nee and Eric Piakowski would like to have a word. Okay.
No, trust me. Those are my guys.
Yeah.
I went to camp and I was coached by Tyronn Lue. How about that? He was the coach of my team at Nebraska basketball camp. But Eric Piakowski, a guy named Eric Strickland was really good. They had great players. Honestly, they were always kind of right there. They were a 5th seed one year, and they just couldn't ever get that win in the NCAA tournament. So they had a really good run this year, though.
It's just amazing to think, you're in Lincoln and the, Cornhuskers are winning like national championships in football and going undefeated, and your dad's like, nope, basketball.
That was just it. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's incredible. John Cunningham, Cincinnati Athletic Director, really excited about Jared Calhoun. Can't wait to see his team this year, and really excited to see what happens with football as well. Take care and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Always fun, guys. Thank you, guys. Take care.
John Cunningham, the Athletic Director for Cincinnati, joining us here. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. Still to come, Travis Goff will join us as we make our way through talking with many administrators and athletic directors across the Big 12. On the way next, though, Joy McGuire, we'll hear from him and what he had to say, and a great quote from James Blanchard on recruiting. It's all on the way next. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Flicks the wrist, and Royer is wide open. Wrestled down inside the 20. Runner in the backfield on 3rd and long. Sorsby off the back.
A great teammate, a great leader, doesn't talk a lot, but he's very trusted. Joe Royer on the inside.
Sorsby into the end zone. Joe Royer, first touchdown of the day.
In this building, including myself, thought that Corey Tyner was going to get the football. They make it to him. He got deep.
The leg.
Pass. Touchdown to the tight end, Royer. There's a flag, though, in the end zone.
It's clearly offside because you got a guy running on the field. They made a play the entire play with 12.
Get off the field. Sorsby hangs it and delivers. Joe Royer. Watch Joe Royer here working in the middle of 3. Just goes up, sees his quarterback in trouble. Defender falls down, but nice job going up, making the play. Taylor Davis.
Open in the flat, Sorsby the other way. Pass is caught, Joe Royer to the end zone. And a hop, skip, and a jump.
Joe Royer was on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage, and so he runs across the formation. The defense not only isn't allowed, doesn't get him.
Through 6 weeks of the season, and Baker Mayfield playing MVP.
Here's Joe Royer who breaks a tackle. Joe Royer, touchdown.
Royer, all he does is turn around, sit, show hands, and then he makes one guy miss and land in Cleveland, and he races to the end zone for the touchdown.
us on Amazon Prime via your Roku device. You can find us on DirecTV. Most of our viewers find us on YouTube. Ari is not a shapeshifter. That is Taman Turner.
Hello.
Who's filling in. Those were a couple of canned interviews from John Cunningham, the Cincinnati AD, and Jamie Pollard, the athletic director at Iowa State. I'm James Westling, Will Connerly, and Anthony Smith. Will on the audio, Anthony on the video, producing today's broadcast. So this is a brand new series that we have introduced because the offseason never sleeps for our friends at Modelo, our proud sponsor. Our Modelo Power Hours will start at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central today. Media days, interviews from football for Iowa State coach Jimmy Rogers, Utah's Morgan Scalley, West Virginia's Rich Rod in hour number 1, and then Sonny Dykes, TCU, Colin Klein, K-State, Avery Johnson and Joe Jackson from K-State, and then TNT's J.B. Long will be at 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central, followed by Brent Brennan from Arizona, Jaden Bray and Nick Cray, the West Virginia players, Jaden Craig and Jamel Johnson, as well as Paul Oyewale.
Oyewale, you got that?
Oyewale.
He's pretty good.
I was trying to do that without looking at his spelling. Big mistake. Those are the TCU players that'll be with us at 4 Eastern, 3 o'clock Central. But our new series is Countdown to Kickoff. So every day we go through a different team. Today we go through Cincinnati. What do we know? What don't we know? When it comes to the Bearcats, what we know is last year's team got off to a really hot start, 7-1. Then they lost 5 straight to end the season. Now they're breaking in a new quarterback. They're breaking in a new defensive coordinator. They're breaking in new co-offensive coordinators and 19 new starters. And then also the schedule somehow got harder this year, even though last year they had Nebraska as their feature opponent in the non-conference. The roster turnover is historic for this program. 6 players gone to the portal, 19 starters, 6 of those, I should say, 6 starters gone to the portal. They've got a brand new team wearing that same Cincinnati black and red.
Yeah, what we also know is that their offensive line is still really, really, really good. Evan Tangastal, Tarantayo, we just heard on our liner. These guys are going to make sure that J.C. French is protected. That's one thing that we do know. One thing that we don't know for sure is, can Cincinnati win in November? I'm not convinced. You mentioned that their schedule, and their schedule is not pretty during the month of November. They have to, and I have it pulled up here, they have to play at Houston, at Iowa State, Colorado, and at BYU. If they're going to get wins in the month of November, it's going to have to be against Colorado, and if they're going to get a sneak, if they're going to have to sneak a win on the road, it's going to have to be at Iowa State. I don't see them beating Houston or BYU, but I will say this. I know we're going to get to this question, but what does Cincinnati need to do to contend? They have to win their first 3 games. That's right off the bat. That's one thing that we do know, because this in-conference schedule is brutal.
Yeah, I would add to what we know. QB1 is the transfer J.C. French. He's dual threat. He's thrown over 800 career passes. He's experienced. But his Pro Football Focus grade was 86th nationally a season ago. That's a downgrade in pure talent from Brendan Sorsby, who was your quarterback the last 2 years. The new offensive coordinators, or co-offensive coordinators, because they'll team up with Satterfield, who calls the plays, are Pete Thomas and Nick Cardwell. But Nate Woody comes in, who will really look to fix a defense that, even with 2 premier NFL talent players in Jake Gaudet and Dante Corleone, they were 10th in the Big 12 in scoring defense. They were 13th in the Big 12 last year against the run. And then, to your point, that brutal schedule. What we don't know, I would highlight, can J.C. French have a major upgrade from the quarterback that he was at Georgia Southern? Because it wasn't a super quarterback-friendly system. It was very ground control oriented, and then they asked him to throw deep more often than not. With that said, is he ready for the speed that he's going to see in the Big 12? Last year's 7-1 start really saw Cincinnati exposed down the stretch in terms of their passing game. All of their passing numbers were way down the back half of the season offensively, and that's with all of the NFL wide receivers. Jeff Caldwell is in training camp. Cyrus Allen is in training camp. Joe Royer might start next year in the NFL. So the offense we don't know a lot about. Defensively is where I could see growth for Cincinnati because I think the scheme just wasn't a right fit for the personnel that they had. That 3-3-5 last year under Tyson Veit, who was an Iowa State staple. Now they've got more of a physical, traditional 4-3 or 4-2-5 hybrid. Well, they'll have more guys on the line of scrimmage, which should help in run support for Cincinnati defensively.
I 100% agree with you about not knowing about J.C. French. We don't know. I do like to be optimistic. I am going to try to hype up Cincinnati's quarterback like Will Connerly would do. J.C. French, what's a quarterback's best friend, James Wesley?
A run game and an offensive line.
And does he have both?
He has an offensive line for
Yes.
sure.
Run game is questionable. It's not as good as last year, but Jabran Payne, Zion Johnson, I think running behind this offensive line is going to pump them up. And he has that. So can I see, him being in a situation that's a little bit more quarterback friendly behind that offensive line playing better than what we saw at Georgia Southern? I could see it. Will it necessarily translate to some of the wins because of how difficult their schedule is? That is something we don't know. That I can't. I personally don't see it happening. But again, we don't know. That's number one. Number two, you mentioned Cincinnati's defense and having to replace guys who went to the NFL. That I don't know if you can. If you talk to any coach, when you hear them say, a guy left to the NFL, how do you replace that? They're like, well, you can't because they went to the NFL. Those guys are irreplaceable. But look, Jake O'Day is gone. They bought in guys like Jacob Finley, MJ Cannon to kind of shore up the unit. Can those guys, fill that hole? I don't think they're ever going to be what Jake O'Day does, but they can't. They do have, what's the word I'm looking for? They're aggressive, and I think that they can, fill a void that Cincinnati has right now.
Yeah, defensively, I think there were more concerns last season that because the offense was so good, the first 8 games got overlooked. They finished 74th nationally in scoring defense. They gave up way too many points. And then offensively, by the end of the year, they were 73rd nationally out of 138 teams in passing yards per game. The other concern I have is their schedule. So they have 4 opponents that they played last year. They went 1-3 against those teams. So the schedule's tougher. The 7-1 start, they don't play hardly any of those teams this year because remember the scheduling matrix completely flips. Now when it comes to camp battles, let's run through that. The depth chart questions coming into the season. I would say offensively, outside of the offensive line, there are camp battles at every position.
Agreed.
Now at quarterback, it's probably more so about QB2. Liam O'Brien is the Penn transfer. Samaje Jones is a kid that was there last year that was a highly touted recruit that they're really high on. So QB2 is definitely open. Wide receiver is wide open. They have 5 newcomers expected to fill the void from the guys that are off to the NFL in Allen and Caldwell. Javani Gibson is the guy getting the headlines, but he barely played at Oklahoma. He was a 5-star recruit, battled injuries. Is he healthy? And then it's Cade Wolford from Kent State. Lorenzo Finner, who is a really good FCS player at South Dakota. Flynn Shelley from Colorado School of Mines, Division II transfer. Malachi Henry from Central Arkansas, another FCS transfer. So you've got 5 wide receivers, none of them established in terms of being wide receiver 1 or even wide out 2.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think that the depth chart is completely open pretty much everywhere except for offensive line and quarterback. It was interesting, though, because Pete Nako said he's not 100% convinced J.C. French is going to be the starter. I don't know why he said that personally. No disrespect to him, but I think the backup battle is, is a legitimate battle. Let me ask you this. we've been questioning if J.C. French is going to be as good as he was at Georgia Southern. I know we talked about the challenges that he had there, but is it possible that if J.C. French does not play well with this, very tough schedule, could Liam O'Brien at some point this season be the starter?
Yes, absolutely. And that's not so much a knock on French, but if things go poorly in Cincinnati, and remember, to your point, they play a brutal schedule, and he's a dual threat quarterback. I want to see if he can hold up over the course of a Big 12 season. He's been healthy at Georgia Southern, but is he bruised and battered to the point where O'Brien does get a shot? Because he's a dual threat quarterback who had over 800 yards rushing at Georgia Southern, but does that speed translate to the Big 12 is a huge question that I have. And then running back is the other position that I would highlight. They've got Zylan Perry coming in, all Sun Belt from Louisiana, 800 yards. Jabrian Payne is a Notre Dame transfer who was like the third string back at Notre Dame because they have two guys that are off to the NFL, including Jeremiah Love. Like, you're not going to get on the field when Jeremiah Love is on that roster. You play the same position. But he's a former four-star from the Cincinnati area who could uncork their ground game.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. And I hope people don't compare their running game this year to last year, because this year it's not going to be as good. But I do think if there's any position group on this roster that could be like a sleeper, I think it's at running back because of that offensive line.
Scott Springer, Bearcats beat writer for the Cincinnati Enquirer, always one of our favorites to talk to on the Cincinnati beat here on the program. He joins us next. He's Taman, I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio.
Iowa steps up, and he's sacked. Back in their own territory at the 47 by Golday.
Fake it to Kingston and give it instead to Hagan, and he is dropped by Golday.
At home, Golday is right here off the edge. I want you to watch Corleone in the middle. He's the one that starts the disruption. Boom, swims through, makes everybody feel chaotic, and then Golday stays home where he's supposed to be.
Cincinnati.
Jake Golday's had a nice job off the edge. Dante Corleone pushing the pocket from the middle. Right there.
Bowling Green, I didn't see him. Jake Golday pulverizing the quarterback. It's a sack and a loss of 7.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, powered by our friends at Modelo. Countdown to Kickoff is the series that we've launched this week, highlighting each and every Big 12 school. And today we focus on the Cincinnati Bearcats. And our guest, one of the few people that we actually trust on the internet, Scott Springer, joins us from the Cincinnati Enquirer. And Scott, you wrote, 5 stories to watch for Cincinnati football as teams go into training camp. Cincinnati is this week, here in a couple of days, I believe. So what are the highlights in your eyes?
Well, the big one is how to win in November. And that's been the thing with Scott Satterfield so far. They've had good starts in each year. Last year you get to November 1st, and before the Utah game, they've got game day there, and you've got 7 wins. And then you lose the rest. And that just, everyone remembers how the season ends, not how the season begins. So they've had incremental progress, but I think people want to see them, take it a step further. Again, if you look at the schedule this year, may not be the easiest thing in the world because 3 of their last 4 games are road games. And Big 12 or any league, it's just really tough to win on the road. So let's see how they get out. 46 new players, you have a new quarterback. You still have the offensive line for the most part. So I would expect a decent running game. They've got some good-looking receivers. You have a new defensive coordinator who wants to get after it. So a lot of unknowns right now, and I'll be a lot smarter in a month or two, I think.
Scott, we were talking during the break, and I asked you about J.C. French, and you said you like what you have seen so far. How do you expect his season will be this year, and how much, if he does have success, how much will that be attributed to how good Cincinnati's offensive line is?
Well, I think the offensive line is the key all the way around. You look at last year, they only allowed 8 sacks. So if he doesn't get sacked and can run around and create a little bit, then that's going to help him. He did throw for more yards than Brendan Sorsby, albeit at Georgia Southern. So you have to, figure out those two things. Is it relatable or not? He can run. He ran for a decent amount of yards. Again, not as many as Sorsby, but they're 2 different guys. But I did talk to one of the Georgia Southern coaches recently and raved about J.C. French and his work ethic and everything else. And he certainly could run the ball. And one thing Scott Satterfield has said that he likes about him is where Sorsby every now and then would take a risk and maybe make a throw that he was trying to squeeze in. French will, take the check down route maybe, but keep moving the stick. So, rather than having a 3rd and 9, maybe you've got a makeable 3rd and 3 or something like that. Seems to be accurate. Really like some of the receivers they brought in. A kid named J.V. Gibson. I think he's going to be pretty good. A transfer from, I always get him and Cyrus Allen confused because they have similar stories. But yeah, J.V. was at Oklahoma. Cyrus Allen came to Cincinnati from Texas A&M. Had a breakout year last year, and is tearing it up with the Chiefs here recently in camp. So this guy could be similar, and he's a bigger guy too. Plus, they've got some other receivers that I like that I think are going to step up.
Scott Springer joining us here on Big 12 Radio. When it comes to some of the best games that J.C. French had at Georgia Southern, you wrote some of the best games and some of the worst games for former quarterback Brendan Sorsby and then J.C. French. Like what surprised you when you went through that and really did your deep dive?
Well, actually, in both cases, some of the games that you would say, well, that was not a very good game, it wasn't like they were totally ineffective. And the big thing that I noticed there, that the reason J.C. French's bad games, the reason they occurred was he was sacked a lot, as many as 7 times in one game. And that didn't happen so much to Sorsby. So that was a big difference there that, maybe with better protection, this kid can keep moving the sticks and keep putting up the numbers. Brendan's, one of his worst passing games was his first season at Iowa State, and I think he was 11 of 31 off the top of my head. But he ran for 140-something yards in that game and scored twice. So he had a way of making things happen. Even if he wasn't throwing it well, he could pick it up in other ways. The opening Nebraska game last year, he only threw for, I think, it was 66, 69 yards, something like that. And the bulk of that came late in the game. So, I don't know, you kind of wonder if the game plan had been a little different there. The game ends on a pick. Brendan didn't throw that many picks. But yeah, it was just that mainly. I think Brendan had better protection all the way around. So if French can get similar protection, and you have 3 of those offensive line members back and 2 guys that should step up and be fine. So I think that's going to help him.
I'm just curious, did you look into Brendan Sorsby's 1 year as the starter at Indiana compared to J.C. French and kind of where they're at and what would be kind of the equivalent in their career?
Yeah, I remember looking at it more when he came. It's like, who is this guy? And you could see potentially, that he was pretty decent there, and obviously a decent runner. And I always liked Brendan's swagger. Talked to him a handful of times, got to know him, and he's a big dude, 6'3", 235, and he just had a cockiness about him. Not so much arrogant, but just the right kind of attitude you'd like to have. French is a different personality, but I think he still has the same confidence in his abilities. He's not as big. Again, there's been a bundle of quarterbacks that are 6'1" or less that have done well. And even, look in the Big 12, Noah Fafita, I don't know what they list him as. I saw him at Big 12 Media Days. Not a tall guy, but he tore Cincinnati apart passing in November. And I think he's the best quarterback coming in right now. So it's not about size so much in the college ranks. Obviously, when you get to the NFL, they like the bigger guys.
Scott, I want to talk about the running back situation. Obviously, Tommy Walker and Evan Pryor are gone, but you guys have Zion Johnson. You bought in Jabron Payne and Zylan Perry. Will we see any competition at the running back position, or is Cincinnati have their guy?
I think it's going to be more than one, which it kind of was last year. You had Tommy Walker and Pryor, kind of shared carries, and then Johnson got into the mix late in the year. I think his first game was at Utah, actually, because Pryor had been injured. And then you had Manny Covey, a kid that caught a lot of passes and gained some yards that way, and he played in the bowl game. He also transferred out. They like Jabron Payne, who's a local kid, actually, but came back to town and really did, had limited opportunities at Notre Dame, and some of that was because he was injured. So he's kind of the big, tough, physical guy. Not necessarily big; they're all similar size, but he's a little bit more ripped. Zion's about 5'9", 180, 185, something like that. Really liked Zion last year at training camp, and he was just someone you saw him play, and he went, "Wow, are they going to fit this kid in?" But they kind of had their running back set already, so he had to wait. So I think he's going to get his opportunity. And then Payne, Coltab was injured a little bit during spring. I think he's back. And then Zylan Perry gained a fair amount of yards at Louisiana over the last couple of years. I think he was about 600 or so, or maybe 700 each season. So you got 4 guys to give it to. I think right now I would say Johnson and Payne would be 1 and 2, or 1A, 1B.
Scott, what are the other position battles? That's a big part of our countdown to kickoff, is to look at the depth chart and battles for each school. What other positions do you highlight?
Tight end, I think it's going to be Gavin Grover, who's 6'6", a big former basketball player. Total different body shape than Joe Royer. A kid named Kamari Smith has came in and looked pretty good, and the guys behind him, Lavelle Waters and Devin Zahersky, so they're deep at tight end. I think Grover may be the guy, but they played a lot of guys last year at that position. The other offensive linemen, you're looking at the right side mainly, but Xavier Lozowicki was a transfer that came in from Maine, and he bided his time and got some reps last year. And then a kid named Judea Milan, who had been injured. He's apparently, by all accounts, looked pretty good all throughout camp and practice and all that. So those guys are going to be on the right side. Then you got Tayo moves from guard to center. Evan Tingestall is the highest rated lineman, I think, in the college football 27 game. I don't play those things. Maybe you guys do, but I'm told he's the highest rated one. And then Joe Cotton is the left tackle. He's back. Big guy that they got from South Dakota that was the top portal tackle available a year ago, and he came and really worked out well. So I think that's the offensive line. Defense is going to be changes because on the first off, a different defense. Now they get away from the 3-3-5. It's a 3-4 setup. That doesn't mean he's just rushing 3. He rushes as many as 7 at times. Nate Woody is the defensive coordinator, came from Army, worked with Satterfield at Appalachian State from 2013 to 2017. They're going to attack more. They want more interceptions. They want more sacks. A guy to look for, I think, is Antoine Peak Jr., who was kind of like a safety linebacker hybrid, but it looks like they're moving him more to an outside linebacker where he's going to be rushing the passer some. His dad played in the NFL, so he gets pretty good instruction. And he's put some pounds on. So not quite as big as Dad was. Dad was a defensive lineman in college, but, he's still 6'1", solid 220, and probably could put more on, but very athletic and has a knack for ripping the ball away. So, and they have several linebackers back. The defensive, the secondary, mainly new guys. They've gotten some taller guys. M.J. Cannon came from Bowling Green, 6'3". Ty Goodwill, South Alabama, 6'3". They got a bunch of guys from Northern Illinois. I think they took a good bit of Northern Illinois' defense. So hopefully the Huskies have something left, but the Bearcats got several guys from there.
Scott, I want to ask you about Cincinnati and their expectations. I know a lot of media reports out there don't have them ranked very high. They have a very difficult schedule. How can they be a sleeper team? I know they have to win their non-conference, but once they get into in-conference play, what can make them competitive in the Big 12?
Confidence and just being sure of themselves. And if you look at the first month, they do not leave Cincinnati. There's 3 home games. There's 1 game against Miami University that they're playing downtown in the soccer stadium, kind of a special game, rather than going out to their field, which really isn't that far away either. It's only an hour and a half tops. So you get 4 chances to sleep in your own bed or be in familiar surroundings and play at home before you go out to Arizona in early October. So if you can get through those and have a reasonable record and a decent amount of confidence, maybe that can lead you from there. Again, it's tough to gauge what anyone has because everyone has so many new players, and you almost can't even look at what happened last year other than in Cincinnati's case. I think it's reasonable to look at the offensive line and say, yeah, I think they're going to run the ball a little bit more because they have all these guys. But Cincinnati has 46 new guys. I think I heard Iowa State has over 80 new guys. And I don't think they're going to be lousy. I talked to their coach at Big 12 Media Days, and he's got a chip on his shoulder because they got picked dead last, I think. And, they don't do the official media poll anymore, but a bunch of writers get together and they do one anyway. And so I think Iowa State's down at the bottom. I've been to Ames. They love their football and they love to win, and they're pretty good in basketball. So it wouldn't shock me that they would be better than people think. So again, I think we have to get to September and see who's done what and then see what happens from there. But again, the big key for Cincinnati is November. I mean, there hasn't been a November win since 2023 at Houston. So like 1-11 so far under Scott Satterfield. Now again, is it all his fault? Not really, but he's the one in charge, so he gets the blame.
Scott, you mentioned November. They play at Houston, at Iowa State, Colorado, and at BYU. Do they finally get a win in November?
I would think yes. I mean, if anything, I think they have a good chance against the Buffaloes coming to Nippert Stadium because Colorado then has to make the travel from Mountain Time to Eastern Standard Time, and that's a bigger factor than people think. And it's the first time Deion Sanders has been in town, I think, since he was a Cincinnati Red. And I really don't know what they have. They talk a good game, and he's had great players before. And they beat Cincinnati out there 2 years ago, but that was with the Heisman Trophy winner and Shedeur Sanders also. So I don't know if they have the same team, but I would think that at the very minimum they'd win that game. I'd have to think at Iowa State they have a decent chance, but again, we're talking about 2 teams that we really don't know how it's going to pan out for them throughout the season. So Iowa State could get on a roll, and by November they're playing. If you're at home and the crowd's behind you, and things go your way, you have a chance. And everyone's tougher at home, just the way it is.
Scott, real quick before we let you go, are these basketball tweets that you're retweeting about Dan Skillings, who was at Cincinnati and then Baylor, and then Doug McDaniels received interest from a handful of schools. Are these all post this eligibility ruling that came down Friday night?
Yeah, I mean, and it's way premature on any of those. I've talked to some people. I mean, I think everyone has to do their due diligence and explore these guys. But, some of this stuff is way beyond my pay scale and abilities. I feel like an attorney with all the court documents I've had to read with Brendan Sorsby and all that stuff. But I think people are just looking to see what's possibly out there. Dan Skillings just got married somewhere here in town recently, because his new wife is from here, and I know he's available. But the schools that I saw that had interest, Baylor was not on the list, Cincinnati was not on the list. A little bit surprised that Charlotte wasn't on the list, because Wes Miller liked him quite a bit. But
right.
I don't know. I mean, he's a guy that, after his sophomore year, everybody was saying, it's like, well, he's going to go to the NBA. And even he was saying that, and, didn't get a sniff in the NBA. But now these guys coming back to school, that's a pretty good gig, It's a lot better than playing in the G League.
No doubt. Awesome stuff. Scott Springer from the Cincinnati Enquirer, our guest to break down the Bearcats. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Great insight.
See you guys.
All right, man.
Thanks, Scott.
Scott Springer on social at @SpringerSports, Sports, reading his tweets via X throughout that segment. Very insightful into the comparison, what might be J.C. French and his ceiling at quarterback behind a dominant offensive line. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We wrap up the show on a Modelo Monday. Coming up next.
Looking to throw on 2nd and 12. Pressure coming. Lets it go. Has a man. Touchdown Bearcats. It's the big fella, Jeff Caldwell. And Caldwell is back in. He was just out, and he weaves his way back inside and broke 3 tackles to angle his way for a first down. Sorsby pulls it out and throws on target. This one to Jeff Caldwell to give the Bearcats the lead.
It's 9-on-9. Jeff Caldwell.
One final time, Big 12 Today here on Big 12 Radio. We had a whole crew of guests today. Scott Springer from the Cincinnati Enquirer, because today we launched Countdown to Kickoff, a different team every day. Tomorrow is
Iowa State.
Dive into the Cyclones, break down position battles, injury news, depth chart locks, and Cincinnati and Iowa State, the first two teams to launch this series. A lot of question marks when it comes to their depth chart. So we'll dive in to the Cyclones tomorrow. We had John Cunningham, the AD for Cincinnati today. Jamie Pollard. We replayed our conversation with the Iowa State AD, and then in hour number one, Pete Nakos joined us, the college football insider from On3, to talk about the eligibility ruling that came down from a federal judge in Denver. Basically, there are a ton of athletes from the class of 2022 that are now, at least as of today, eligible. Doug McDaniel, the point guard, who's received interest from some Big 12 schools.
Some guy named Taman
Lipsey, the Iowa State point guard. This mostly impacts basketball compared to football, because football, like, camp starts for Cincinnati in 2 days. Like 48 hours, they'll be on the field. But basketball, those guys still have a couple of months.
We might see some different teams than what we are expecting to see come October.
It's wild, man. The Protect College Sports Act will be, we assume, voted on this week, because finally we got SEC and Big Ten approval over the weekend. But I have given these two a very important assignment. T-Chains is in for Ari this week. He's normally the producer. So we bring in producer Will to produce for Taman. And I said, guys,
Producer Will.
Let me task you with giving us a story. Because radio, at least I've been taught, right or wrong, it's all subjective. It's about storytelling. So I tasked you both with tell me a story. It can be player, coach, team, Big 12 related. You shared that you almost went to TCU.
Did.
That you've been balling out with TCU on that new college football video game.
I have won a championship.
So that was story one. So we've heard one from you. We're gonna throw the floor. We'll circle back, Tim.
Okay, that's
I know
fine.
you've come with like.
I have a couple.
stories.
Yeah.
You were the ultimate storyteller.
I try.
Coming to find out, but producer Will is going to chime in with your story.
Okay.
And
Yes.
I wish I could tease it better, but
You can't.
I made the mistake of telling you, don't tell me what it's about.
That's not a mistake, though, because now you're going to find out live on air. And so, story time, you texted us. You already set it all up. I'm thinking, let's tell a personal story on air. That's probably the direction I'll go, because most people don't know me, because I come in once in a while.
And you're what, 6'8"?
6'6". I'm about 6'5".
Built like an NFL tight end.
Yes.
Well, the story actually relates a little bit athletically. So, over the weekend, I did something for the first time in 6 years.
Okay.
And my body has been reminding me about that ever since. So 6 years ago, COVID happens, ends my college playing career, played baseball. And so I've been broadcasting and working in sports media ever since.
Wait, COVID ended your playing career?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, quick aside, COVID hits March 2020. We're in the middle of what is my senior season of college. And so the season was over, and I had a decision to make. Do I go back for that extra year, which is still a topic of conversation, different set of circumstances in today's stage of college athletics, or do I leave and just go on out? And so it was the middle of senior season, and I just decided to go into the media field. But
Because
essentially,
you'd have to go to school.
I'd have to go back
Again,
and go to school.
like-
I did go back to school, but I did it as a graduate assistant. Like, I already had this lined up, this job lined up at school. And so that ended my career. And it was honestly, didn't expect to talk about this today. It was crushing for me.
I bet, man.
Because I was not a guy that played a ton and got a ton of opportunities until later on in my career. And so you're working hard senior year, crushed. And so I didn't pick up a baseball, didn't do any of that for a long time. However, this weekend, fast forward 6 years later, I had the itch to play again. I love watching baseball. I go to Ranger games. I love covering it. I love watching it. broadcasting it, everything. So I had the itch to play again. One of my buddies from college lives down in this area, Fort Worth Men's League, that we go play in, and I go out and I pitch, and they say, he's talking me up, hey, I got a buddy, he pitched in college, he's going to come in and do a good job. I haven't thrown a ball and got off a mound, mind you. Maybe I've thrown some stuff, but haven't got off a mound in 6 years. Go out on the bump, I'm starting. And again, this is men's league. Guys aren't taking it too serious. Some of these guys played in college, but I was so sore. Like
This isn't like slow pitch softball.
No, this is like cleats and like mound, 60 feet 6 inches. Wow. But again, it ain't that deep, but it is like I am sore because I have like mentally, I know one way to do things, right? Go as hard as you can. And so I was still trying to throw as hard as I could and do the things, and the performance wasn't great, but the worst part about it is I was hanging. I mean, I did this Friday night, and it was like still a little bit difficult to like fully straighten my arm because I threw about 80 pitches. So
dang,
I was convincing myself, I'll crush these guys. Men's league, come on now. Like, it's something you used to be good at as a Division II athlete. And so the good news is I could still throw the ball a little bit over the plate, was a little bit erratic, but extremely sore. So 6 years is a good amount of time, but it did scratch the itch. Like, I'm going to go back and continue to do it. I feel like that's a good hobby, but definitely sore.
How did it go? How many batters did you strike out? Did you win the game? What was your line?
You know, the funniest thing is I went 2 1/3 innings and threw, I don't know the exact amount of pitches. I mean, they're not keeping stats, but I threw a good amount of pitches because early on I was walking I think I walked multiple guys in the first inning. I mean, I just couldn't find it, and I'm like trying to find it. And when my buddy comes out, gives me a mound visit, he's like, hey, you're good. 75 will just be fine, because he knew I was just wanting to let it rip. And I don't know, there wasn't a radar gun.
Did you throw any bullpen sessions prior?
No, this is like
You
this
just
is my
got
first
on the
time
mound.
in 6 years
Oh,
for
my
sure.
You're like, I haven't thrown a baseball in
No.
6 years, and you get up there, and you're
Psychotic,
just
right?
dealing heat.
Well, that part's debatable, but I was trying to let it
How
rip.
fast is your fastball?
Well, when I was playing, it would be in the upper 80s, and I would think I probably got some maybe close to 80 miles an hour, which is probably fast for men's league, but for me, like, I obviously just don't have it anymore. So I'll go to the performance part. It didn't go very well.
Really?
I'm walking guys, I'm getting some outs, and then I'm just like, I'll just throw it down the middle, and guys are hitting it. And so I go 2 1/3. My buddy comes in, and then we get to the end of the game, and I'm still hitting. They put me like last in the order to hit because they knew I came just to pitch. Base knock, and then we get 2 runs home, tie the game. And I hadn't hit in so long, so I scratched the itch to like hang out. It's a 25-plus league or whatever. I'm extremely sore, but it made me appreciate, like, every 5th day, these guys are going out throwing 100 pitches, and they're sore in the major leagues and coming out. And obviously I'm doing nothing close to that level, but that was my story from the weekend.
By the way, Will, at Wet Blanket 77 on YouTube asks, you threw for 2 1/3 innings with 80 pitches?
I was getting rocked then.
Wow.
Okay. I mean, wild and some long at-bats. And, again, I don't know the exact pitch count, but I went, I think, 2 1/3, and I was walking guys, getting hit, and it wasn't going well. I mean, it started off, you would just get some strikeouts, but overall, it was a struggle. I mean,
My
what
main
would you
takeaway
expect?
is the talent in the whatever area men's league is elite.
Yeah.
Because if somebody's throwing 80-plus miles an hour and I'm batting, I'm not sniffing that pitch.
Not at all.
Like, this is an upper echelon league.
I did batting practice.
You could hit.
I did batting practice at Globe Life Field, and like the machine throws like 50 miles an hour, and I was horrible. I think I got 2 hits out of like 20 attempts. I was terrible.
Well, and I think the hardest thing to do in sports is probably hit a baseball. And
Yes,
so,
yeah.
But again, I was wondering where
How many of these guys spent time in the minor league system or played for the Rangers?
No, it's not that deep. A lot of these guys are former college players. But again, like, I was getting rocked a little bit and just trying to find it, just having fun. But they knew, like, you're going to go out there and just have fun. Like, no one's trying to make it to the show. You're throwing a lot of pitches in a little amount of time. That's not usually a good thing. So you get yanked on out of there. But I got out there, and I guess the payoff to my story is just how much respect I got for pitchers, even more so because of how they go every fifth day throwing 100 pitches.
Man, we are about to be your ultimate hype man.
Okay, let's
Right,
go.
for sure.
Because that is amazing.
Do it.
Well, I went way long. I guess concise.
No, that's an amazing
Great
story.
story.
Hey, that's the
better than my
that's
story.
the art of storytelling. Taman, we're gonna have to pause yours for
Fine.
tomorrow.
That's that's a way
Good
to
luck.
close.
Good.
I don't know if I can.
That bar has been set high.
Yeah, very high.
Okay.
I don't know if I can step in.
I'm going to tell you a story tomorrow about bananas. And this guy's talking about pitching over 80 pitches on a Friday.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff, dude. All right. He's Taman Turner. I'm James Westling. That voice was Will Connerly, who is our producer all throughout this week on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We look at Iowa State tomorrow, countdown to kickoff, as we continue with our series that we launched today. Don't miss the Big 12 Power Hour starting at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central. Wall-to-wall coverage for the Big 12 right here on Big 12 Radio. For now, we're out. We're back tomorrow, 8 to 11 Eastern Time, right here on the channel.
Peace.